everyone. Welcome to episode 15 of the Never Split Up podcast. My name's Nolan. I'm here with Anthony. How you doing today, Anthony? This is a big day for us, right?
It is a great day for us today.
Yep. You want to announce what we're covering?
Yes, we are going to be covering the biggest movie we've covered yet, the original 1996 classic Scream. Very special one for me.
Yep, just in time for Scream 6, which I know you're super pumped about. I'm actually getting
Yes.
I was pumped about it. It was on my most looking forward to list when we talked about that,
Right, right,
but
right.
I'm actually really excited about this movie, this new movie coming out. I think it has the potential to be like one of my favorite screams. It's setting itself up like, you know me, I'm a villain guy, and Ghostface looks really cool in this new one. So I'm super pumped. But yeah, we're covering the original Scream for now. We're getting ready for the new one, and we have a couple special little episodes moving forward regarding the Scream franchise. But we figure you know, stick to the original first, cover the original, and then kind of branch out from there. But I mean, the original, like you said, it's the biggest movie we've covered so far. It's so iconic. It is really, when I think of 90s and I think of horror, it's Scream. Scream is the first movie I think of. And we talked about it briefly on the last episode, how Scream, or 2 episodes ago, how Scream kind of revitalized the slasher genre, especially in the 90s. And it's just Wes Craven. I mean, what more can you say, really?
Yeah, we can say a lot because this is going to be a crazy one. Yeah, when I think of 90s in general, I think of Scream. This is the movie and the franchise of the 90s. This is just, it's on another level. It's crazy. It brought back the horror genre, just like Halloween started the craze. Scream brought it back after it went stale. So, I love how they're both intertwined and they're both my favorites. So, it makes it even more special for me.
Yeah, it was in a time where, I mean, we had the 80s slasher, and then it just became kind of a joke of itself by the late 80s. And then you get to the early 90s, and I mean, it's like you said, it was so stale. I really can't, off the top of my head, think of a great horror movie from the early 90s that is in the slasher realm until,
Right.
Scream comes along. You have New Nightmare, which was also Wes Craven. That was a little ahead of its
Yes,
time. That was kind of like his
exactly.
testing for Scream, I guess.
Yep.
But
Yep.
yeah, that you're right, because you really had the 80s, which has its iconic, killers and stuff, and then the 90s comes along, and until Scream, which is more than halfway through the decade, 1996. So
Yeah, it really had to bring it back in a big way. I mean, we had good horror movies in the 90s. We had like Candyman and like Silence of the Lambs, but slashers were like out of style by the time Scream came around. So it really brought it back in full force. And it kicked off the whole late 90s, early 2000s slasher genre. So Scream was another trend center, just like Halloween was.
oh yeah, talking about trend setting, I mean, none of that in movie meta stuff was ever done either. So I mean, that was really
Right.
the first of its kind, especially in horror, to really comment on itself and
Very
reference
self
other
aware.
horror movies in the
Yes, that's
movie.
what
I
I
mean,
love
that
so much
happens.
about this movie. Oh,
Yeah, that happens all the time now, but I don't
right.
think it really
Who
happened
started
that
it?
much back then.
Yep.
Yeah.
Who started that Scream?
Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, I mean, I guess we can get into the synopsis. I mean,
I mean, if
I'm
you're
assuming
watching us or
everyone
listening
knows.
to us, everybody knows what Scream is, but I'll just get the generic IMDb synopsis before I start gushing over this movie. So, the synopsis on IMDb: a year after the murder of her mother, a teenage girl is terrorized by a new killer who targets the girl and her friends by using horror films as part of a deadly game. Ooh, it sounds so weird reading the synopsis just because the movie
Yeah,
is so, like,
I
part of
know.
me.
Yeah, yeah. It's so funny when you watch a movie so many times, and for you it's Scream, um, how it kind of takes on a life of its own,
Yeah,
and like you
it's
can't really
crazy.
remember like how you felt about it when you first watched
I
it,
know.
almost, and you
I know,
kind of
that's
want
why I'm
that
so
back.
happy, like, you're here discussing it with me because, like, to me, like, this movie is, like, literally part of my DNA. So, like, it's second nature to me. So I, like, don't
Yeah,
even know how
yeah,
I'm gonna go about, like, discussing this because it's
uh
just
huh,
literally an all-timer for me. This is as all-time as you get for my
yeah.
favorite movies. So, it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be crazy.
Yeah, it should be a good balance because I've talked about this briefly before, but Scream is not nearly as important to me it is as it is for you, especially the franchise. So yeah, this is going to be a fun one for sure. But real quick announcement, I'll just announce the winner of the Never Split Up poll from last week. We covered My Bloody Valentine. Thanks to everyone who voted and everyone who listened and watched. That was a really fun episode for Valentine's Day. But looks like I won the poll. So thanks everyone for voting for me. So I'll get a little advantage in today's episode. I'm going to need all the advantages I can get for
I
Scream.
was gonna
So
say it's good because you're gonna need an advantage because I know this movie like by
yeah,
heart.
so I will go first on that, and I'll probably why don't we do it so the winner gets to go first on that, and then the winner gets to pick who does their score first. That might be a little more fun too,
Okay,
just because
okay.
you know I never know who to you know
I know we
defer
always
to.
just randomly say you go first,
Yeah,
I go first.
but maybe we'll make the stakes a little higher. But
All
okay,
right,
great.
cool. Well,
Yeah,
what are your thoughts though of the movie overall? Let's get into that because I want
I,
to hear. Yeah, because yeah,
this is
let's
so
get into
weird.
this.
Yeah, I know.
I know it's so weird giving your overall thoughts on like a movie
Yeah,
that's literally one of the most
yeah.
iconic horror movies ever made.
Because even though this movie is not nearly as like I guess beloved, or I'm sorry, let me start that over.
You love this movie,
Even
yeah,
though this franchise from me isn't as beloved as it is to you, this original movie is an all-timer for me too. So I've seen the original more times than I've seen any other Scream movie. It's um it's just iconic. It did things that, you know, are still being done today, like I said, with the meta stuff. And yeah, I was just saying it's so weird giving my overall thoughts, especially to you, because it's like, you know, I'm afraid you're gonna like jump in at any moment, like, oh, actually, but
I might,
I'm gonna try
I might
to,
slice and
yeah,
dice in here.
yeah. But my overall thoughts, like, it's just great. Like I did, like, it's just
I
so
know
good.
it's like what hasn't
Um,
been said about this movie. Yeah,
the third act, I always forget how long that third act
it's
is,
so
especially like the ending where they the reveal. I always forget how long that scene in the kitchen is. Like it's a long sequence,
the third act
but
is like the biggest portion of the movie, and that
yeah,
doesn't happen in horror movies. The whole
yeah,
once you get to Stu's house, it's you still have like 45, 50 minutes of the
hmm
movie left.
yeah,
It's crazy.
and I love it. I think it's
Oh, me
great. I mean, I think the
it's
pacing of it is awesome, and
like, amazing.
the uh we didn't go through the cast, but we'll obviously
No,
go through that,
we'll do
you
that.
know.
Yeah,
But the whole reveal in the kitchen and then the aftermath of that is so long and played out, but it works because of the performances. I mean,
right.
especially Matthew Lillard, seeing the difference between his character and what's his Skeet Ulrich? How do you say his name?
Yeah, Skeet Ulrich. Yeah,
Skeet Ulrich. Ulrich.
yeah,
They
yeah. It's
play
either
off each other.
people do both. Whatever.
Okay,
Yeah, I say Ulrich.
they
Yeah,
play off each other so well in that scene
it's
that it's like you just want more. Like, wow, that scene
talk about
wasn't long
chemistry.
enough. Yeah,
Talk
I
about
know.
chemistry.
It's so
And
fun.
it's
Yeah.
already long, so it's crazy that you want more.
Yeah, I know. I know. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. But yeah, this is just a great movie. And I have a few notes when we go through it that I want to highlight. I really don't have many nitpicks. There's things that are like, I guess, unintentionally comical about the movie because it is from the 90s, so we can kind of poke fun at like some of the 90s things. But other than that, I mean, it's great, and I'm so happy that this movie exists because it has all those cheesy like 90s elements. Like throughout the movie it has like the super 90s industrial music as the score,
I love it.
and it's so great that that's in like a good horror movie, if that makes sense, because we get like I get a movie that I get to enjoy, but I also get to enjoy that 90s aspect to it. Whereas instead of watching like a crappy 90s movie, like the only other one I can think of is that's like super 90s like that, but actually pulls it off is I Know What You Did Last Summer. And those two movies are cool, but Scream is just on another level. And yeah, I'm really happy about this movie, and we'll just talk about it. And just
Yeah,
this
this
movie,
movie
this
is it's a movie of its time, but it's also timeless. So it's both. It's because it'll people will be going back, and this will be so many people's introduction to horror, like, years from now, and, so I get what you're saying, it's a '90s movie, but it's also has that timeless quality to it.
Yeah. What are your, I guess, overall thoughts?
This is, like I don't even know how to, like, articulate and put into words, like,
It's
how much I
hard.
love this movie
Yeah.
and, like, how much this movie is me. It's everything that I want in a horror movie and a movie in general. This movie is the definition of perfect. I wouldn't change one thing about this movie. It's expertly directed, then one of the most, if not the most cleverly written horror movie of all time. It's just the cast in a slasher movie, the way that we connect to these characters and the character development, you don't see this in any other horror franchise, any other slasher franchise ever. And even in one movie, we get so much development with these characters and we connect with them. In the opening scene alone, we connect with the character who's only in it for 10, 15 minutes. So yeah, it's just a perfect movie. It's one of the best slasher movies ever made, and I I am in love with this movie. I could watch this movie every day and never get tired of it. It's just perfect, and this franchise means so much to me. It's my favorite of all time. It's just and it started with a bang. This movie is a classic, and I think it's actually registered as one of the best movies ever made, not just best horror movies. If you look at like the all-time lists, and it deserves that spot. It's just a perfect, perfect, perfect horror movie, and I'm so thankful for Wes Craven and Kevin Williamson for writing this movie. And
Yeah,
we're
awesome.
90s kids, so it's even more special for us because we grew up in this time. And like we said in our villains episode, that when it was Halloween time, like who wasn't Ghostface? You know, it's a part of our childhood as well. So it's even more special.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I mean, perfectly put. There's really not much more to say. You know, the only other comment, I guess, like overall generalized comment that I would make is, um, I'm gonna try not to play my hand too much because I know we have special episodes coming up, but this is definitely my favorite iteration and favorite movie to watch Ghostface, if that makes sense. Because it's the
Okay.
first movie in the franchise. So like the way Ghostface conducts himself and like he's more menacing because it's the first movie. And like even though I've seen this movie probably 100 times, like I can still kind of every time I watch the movie, like any movie, I guess, but especially this movie, I still kind of put myself in the start of the franchise. Like you try to take out the sequels while you're watching an original, if that makes sense. So when I do that, like Ghostface in this movie is, I don't know, it's something special about him. I can't really like articulate it, but I think it's my favorite version of Ghostface. I really do.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, it's hard for me to comment because it's all these movies mean so much to me. But yeah, this and it's just it's just a perfect movie, and like I said, I Halloween's also very special to me, so I love that this movie is, the writer Kevin Williamson's it's literally his love letter to Halloween because that's his favorite movie of all time, so, again, they're doing everything that speaks to me and is just so special to me. I mean, my dogs' names are Dewey and Craven. I mean, it's just it doesn't
Mhm.
get more, special to me than Scream.
Yeah. Well, why don't we dive right in then? That's I
Whew!
mean,
We're
what
really
more can
gonna
we
this is
say?
gonna be a hard,
Let's go.
yeah. Yeah, so like I said, the director is the iconic master of suspense, Wes Craven. I'm so upset that I never got the chance to meet him before he unfortunately passed away. You know,
Mm,
one of my favorite directors of all time. The writer is Kevin Williamson. He was a big writer in the '90s. This movie really blew up his career. He's just so you can tell he loves horror movies by the way he crafted the story and just wrote his dialogue is so smart. And then I mean, talk about a cast. We're introduced to our trio of the franchise. Nev Campbell is a star. Courtney Cox, David Arquette, that's our main trio who have been with us throughout the entire five movies. We have Drew Barrymore, obviously. We have Roger L. Jackson as the voice of Ghostface. We have Matthew Lillard, Ski Ulrich. We have Jamie Kennedy. I mean, we have Rose McGowan. I mean, this cast goes on
yeah,
and on. It's
yeah.
just an
You got
embarrassment of riches. I don't even know.
yeah.
It's crazy. It's so damn good, and they're all great actors. We talked about last week in My Bloody Valentine how we don't care about these characters. We just can't wait for them to die. The actors don't matter. This movie is the complete opposite. we we remember these characters as much as we remember Ghostface and these actors, and it's just to have that in a horror slasher movie is just something crazy. So it's the complete opposite of your typical 80s slasher, how you view the characters. We're rooting for these characters.
Yeah, and I would say that's a real testament to the, like you said, the actual actors, especially the um the group, like the main group. Um you
Yes.
have like their um like stereotypical, like, you know, different,
Well, they each play a part. They're each, you know,
yeah, parts, and like that you see a lot in slashers, especially from like high schoolers, but they're more memorable in this movie because of
right,
the performances. Yeah, like
right,
you
exactly.
care, yeah, you definitely care about them more than like the typical, high school jock, and then high school, whatever it is. So, yeah, I
And
agree with
that's
you
on
on that.
purpose because they're commenting on they're self-aware, so it's commenting on those typical characters, but it's making it but Kevin Williamson's writing is just making them actual feel like actual people and not just those typical characters. So it's still
Mhm.
self-aware, but it's also, growing on that and making them
Yeah.
feel like actual human beings in a movie.
Mhm. Yeah, oh yeah. Definitely. Definitely the writing and the performances for sure elevate those characters.
It's just oh, it's perfect.
So do you want to get into this opening scene? It's kind of forgettable,
Oh,
I guess. It's not really
oh yeah, yeah.
it's okay, I guess. It's
Oh,
good.
okay. So, yeah, let's get this is gonna be a doozy of a plot breakdown. So, yeah, we get into the opening logo dimension. I know it's like the wine scenes are associated with this franchise, unfortunately, for the first four movies. But damn, I can't help it. When I'm a kid, whenever I saw that Dimension logo pop up, I just associated that immediately with Scream. And you know what? I'm happy that they released these movies. They're shitty people, but damn, they created a great franchise. So then this is the only movie in the franchise where we get the title drop Scream before the opening scene even occurs.
Mm,
So we
okay.
hear all the
Yeah.
we hear screaming, and then the title card drops. All the sequels, we get the opening scene first, and then the sequel
Yeah.
title card drop.
Oh, okay.
So
Good
this
point.
is
Yeah.
again, yeah.
Never thought about
So
that.
the original opens with the title, and
Okay.
then I mean, we get into what is, in my opinion, the best opening scene ever put to film with this movie. It's
Wow.
not only the best opening scene of a horror movie, it's my favorite, and it's the best opening scene of all time. It's just
Okay. Okay.
pure
I
masterclass.
respect
It's a
it. Yeah. I
masterpiece.
mean,
It's a masterpiece.
it's really
You know
hard.
how we
It's
talked about
perfect.
in Barbarian, the first like act was like a mini
Yeah.
masterpiece?
Yeah. Yeah.
This first 15 minutes alone is a
Uh-huh.
masterpiece.
Yeah.
It's just iconic. So we get introduced to we see a young woman. She's Casey Becker, played by Drew Barrymore, who we'll get into a little history of Drew Barrymore in the movie, like once we get through the scene. But I grew up with Drew Barrymore watching E.T. and Firestarter. So I'm like, oh my god, Drew Barrymore is like the star of this Scream movie. I can't wait to watch it. The first time I saw this, I was like, oh, okay, we have our star of the movie in the opening scene. Cool. So the phone rings and she picks up, and it's this voice saying, hello, hello, who's this? Who's this? And he's like, oh, I guess I dialed the wrong number. And then, she's like, all right, no problem. No worries. She hangs up. And then he dials again, calls again. And then he goes, hey, why are you calling again? She's like, didn't you just call? He's like, oh, I want to talk to you. And she's like, oh, we got 900 numbers for that. See ya. And she hangs up. It's so good. But then he calls again. And she's making, first of all, she's making her Jiffy Pop popcorn on the stove. I made my mom buy Jiffy Pop after watching this movie because I was obsessed with it after watching this movie. It's so
Yeah.
good. But so he calls again and she answers. And he's like, why don't you want to talk to me? And then he's like, tell me your name. And then she's like, no. He's like, tell me your name and I'll tell you mine. And then he asks, what's that? And she goes, popcorn. Like, she doesn't just get like nervous. She's like, oh, popcorn. She just like has a conversation with this dude. And she's
Mhm.
like, yeah, I'm planning on watching a movie. And he's like, oh, what kind of movie? She's like, yeah, scary movie. And then he's like, do you like scary movies? And then we get the iconic, what's your favorite scary movie? One of the many iconic lines of this
Mhm.
franchise and movie. And then she's like, oh, I don't know. She's like, Halloween. And of course, that is my favorite movie of all time. So, and then she asks, what's his favorite scary movie? And then he goes, I don't know. She's like, oh, he's asked her to guess. And she's like, oh, Nightmare on Elm Street. And then he goes, "Oh, is that the one with the guy with the knives for the fingers?" She's like, "Yeah, Freddy Krueger." And I love how she goes, he goes, "It was scary." And then she's like, "Yeah, well, the first one was, but the rest sucked."
Yeah,
And it's so funny because Wes Craven's the
I
director
know.
of this movie, and he directed the original Nightmare on Elm Street. And he's like, "I didn't write that line. I didn't put that line." And went the backstory. He's like, "I didn't do that on purpose."
Yeah. Well, because
But I always
correct me if
gotta,
I'm wrong, but this whole movie was written before Wes came on board, right? Because he came on board pretty
yes,
late in the
yes.
process. So it's not like
So
Kevin Williamson knew that Wes Craven was gonna, you know,
no,
direct.
no, no,
Yeah.
no. But I
Yeah.
always think I get a laugh out of that every time. Like, damn, they
Yeah.
really
Maybe
jabbed him
he
a little bit
added
with
that
that.
in after Wes signed on. Like maybe that was a
Yeah.
revision because that's just too perfect of a,
It's
of a
so
line.
good.
Yeah, but
But yeah, I always get a crack out of that. First of all, the dialogue already is just like epic and iconic. They're
it's
talking
iconic.
about
Yeah.
referencing horror movies within a horror movie. That's like you said,
Uh,
it's not done before like this to this extent. So we're
yeah.
talking about Halloween already. We're talking about Nightmare on Elm Street. Um,
I don't know if you've mentioned it in the episode yet, but Roger L. Jackson, man, I mean,
yes, yes, I did.
such
Yeah,
a
yeah,
iconic voice, and I know he has a lot of great moments as Ghostface throughout what now 5 movies, but his performance in this opening scene is really special to me. The tone and the cadence, and then the underlying creepiness under it, and how he's playful and flirty with her, but you can
right.
tell something's wrong
And she's
even
flirting back with
before.
him. She's
Yeah,
flirting
even
back with him
before
in the
she
beginning.
realizes something's wrong. Like
Yes,
there's that undertone. It's such
right.
great voice acting in this scene. I love it.
Oh,
It might be my favorite
and the way
Roger
she
L.
reacts to
Jackson
him, like
performance.
her performance is also an all timer just in this
The only
opening
other one I
alone.
could
She's
think of is
so.
the opening to Scream 4. Is that the one where he says like he knows her mother and stuff? Or is
That's
that
Scream
Scream
5.
3?
That's Scream 5.
Oh yeah, that's Scream 5. Yeah, with
Yeah.
yeah. I like that
With
one
Jenna
too.
Ortega in the opening scene, Tara.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. I like his performance in that scene
Well, because
too.
that really is it's really a throwback to this one. So that might be
Yeah,
why you
yeah.
like
So
it. Yeah.
yeah, maybe it's very similar. So, but yeah, his voice in this is like extra fucking
It's so menacing, but like you're kind
layered.
of intrigued. Like
It's
her, like I'm
layered.
intrigued
Yeah,
by it in the beginning
yeah.
before it gets. I'm like, oh, who is it? Like I want to hear what he has to say.
Again, I wish I could remember the first time like watching this
It's
scene
hard
and
because
like how I felt.
I think I've watched this movie more than any other movie of my entire lifetime, so it's
Yeah,
hard to remember that first
I
time.
know.
But it's just I would imagine the first time I watched this, I was like a kid in a candy store on the edge of my seat, like, oh my god, he's talking about Halloween right now. Like, what's happening? What's
Yeah,
going on in this movie? But
yeah,
I love how she's flirting back. She's like, oh, I'll talk about Nightmare on Elm Street with you, and he's like, oh, do you have a boyfriend? And she says no. She does say no. She's
yeah,
like, nope. And she's like, I'm like, oh damn, Casey Becker is like really keeping her options open right here.
yeah.
But then he keeps asking for her name, and she's like, "Why do you want to know my name?" And he goes, "Because I want to know who I'm looking at." Oh,
Like,
damn, that line just like you get chills immediately
yeah,
the way he delivers that line.
uh huh,
And she's like, "What'd you say?" He's like, "Because I want to know who I'm talking to." She's like, "That's not what you said." She's like, "All right, I gotta go."
yeah,
So like an instant, like you're like clicked, like, oh shit, like she's in danger. You know right away once he says that line, you're like something's going down this opening scene with Drew Barrymore, the most famous star in this movie at that time.
hmm
So she hangs up and you can tell she's getting anxious at this point. And then we get a ring again. And then he goes, I told you not to hang up on me. And then she goes, listen, she hangs up again. And then he rings again. And then this is like, she tries to get tough. She's like, listen, you asshole. And he's like, no, listen, you little bitch. You hang up on me again, I'll gut you like a fish. Oh, dude, that line is like, oh my god, it's so menacing. Then he gets to he now you know he like means business. So his voice does like change a tiny bit because it gets a little more intense and
hmm
intimidating.
yeah,
And then she's pretty much like, "Is this some kind of a joke?" He's like, "No, more of a game, really. Can you handle that, Blondie?" So then she knows 100% that he can see her, and she finally, at this moment, locks the front door. I love how she runs to the front door after all this conversation to lock it. Finally, I'm like, "Damn, girl." I would have had, and especially like we didn't speak about her house is like in the middle of nowhere, like on
hmm
a remote, huge piece of property. So it's not like she can just run outside the house and like run to her neighbors because there's no neighbors in sight.
yeah,
So she locks the front door, and then she tells him, "I'm 2 seconds away from calling the police." And then I love how he's like, "They'll never make it in time. We're out in the middle of nowhere." And then it's true because that's what happens in every horror movie. They go to call the cops and they never make it in time. So again, commentary right there. And then she asks him, "What do you want?" And he goes, "To see what your insides look like." It, it's just so dark. It went from like flirty to like this is a dark and terrifying horror movie right now.
Mhm.
So I love that line, "To see what your insides look like." So she hangs up, obviously, and then the doorbell rings, and then she goes, "Who's there? Who's there?" And then she yells, "I'm calling the police." But then when she goes to pick up the phone to call the police, obviously he calls. And then he goes, "You should never say who's there. Don't you watch scary movies? It's a death wish. You might as well come outside to investigate a strange noise or something." Again, he's commentating on every horror movie we've seen to this point in the 80s. He's making commentary on every single slasher movie, and he's true. So then she's like, "Look, you've had your fun. You better leave." And she's like, "Or my boyfriend will be here soon." He's like, "Oh, I thought you said you didn't have a boyfriend." And I love how she's like, "I do, I do." And he's big and he plays football. He'll kick the shit out of you. I always gonna laugh out of that part when she says that.
Yeah.
But he's like, "I'm getting scared. I'm shaking in my boots." And then this is the real singer. He's like, "His name wouldn't happen to be Steve, would it?" And then she's like, "Oh shit, how do you know his name?" And then he tells her to turn on the patio lights, and then poor Steve is out there. He's straddled into a chair, taped to a chair, and then she's going to open the door, and then Ghostface is like, "I wouldn't do that if I were you." So this poor girl like wants to help her boyfriend, but she can't because she knows there's a killer out there. So then she's just like, "What do you want?" And he says, "I want to play a game." And then she goes, "What kind of a game?" And he says, "Turn off the lights and you'll find out." And this is just an iconic scene right now. So he explains that it's movie trivia, and he's going to ask a question, and that if she gets it right, Steve lives, but if she gets it wrong, he'll die. And then he says he's going to give her a warm up question, and he asks her to name the killer in Halloween. So, I mean, everyone on the planet should know the name of the killer in Halloween. It's Michael Myers. So she gets that right. And now he goes, "Okay, now time for the real question." And she's like, "Oh, no." She's like, "No, I got that right." But he's taunting her. So this is one that I can't remember if the first time I watched this movie, if I got this question right or wrong.
Okay.
But he asked her, "This is time for the real question. Name the
Yeah.
killer in Friday the 13th." And she jumps up and she's like, "Jason, Jason, Jason, it's Jason." And he goes, "I'm sorry, that's the wrong answer." And I love how she's like, "It's Jason. I've seen that movie 20 goddamn times." And he's like, "Well,
Yeah.
if you've seen it 20 times, you should know that Jason didn't show up to this until the sequel. Mrs. Voorhees is the killer." So, like, he tricked her. Because whenever we think of Friday the 13th, the first thing we think of is Jason, not Pamela. But Pamela Voorhees was the killer in the original Friday the 13th, and we'll
Mhm.
get to those movies. But
Yeah, and even
so
if you
she got it
know
wrong.
that in the moment, like you
Well,
said,
she's hyped
whenever you
up. She's
hear Friday the
adrenaline going.
13th,
Right,
your
right,
first it's Jason, and like
right.
I don't know if I would say like have the presence of
Especially in that
mind
scenario.
to say
In that
yeah, to say
scenario. Right,
Pamela, like even if I knew the answer, like so it
right.
really
Because we
was a
know the
trick
answer because
question.
we've all seen Friday the
Oh yeah,
13th.
of course.
But
Yeah.
we think of Jason because of the whole franchise.
Mhm.
So I love that he tricked her like within movie trivia. I love how they use that as like how she got her answer wrong. Again, it's so clever. But yeah, so she tells him that, "You tricked me." And then he goes, "Lucky for you, there's a bonus round, but I'm afraid the poor Steve, he's out." And then we just hear Steve like screaming Casey, and we hear stabbing and stabbing, and she turns on the lights, and he's literally like gutted and his intestines are coming out. So he's dead. Great scene, so memorable. So then he tells her, "Hey, we're not finished yet." And he tells her, "I'll give you one more chance, one more question." He asks her, "What door do you think I'm at?" And I'm like, "Ooh, he's about to break in." So
Yeah.
she's like, "I can't." She's like, obviously hysterical. And she said, "I can't do this. I can't do this." She's hysterical. And he's like, "All right, you're lost." And he smashes, I don't know if he throws a chair or something through the patio door. And then, she starts running away. So we get the little chase through the house. She sees him. She sees a robe. This is the first glimpse we get of the Ghostface robe. She sees someone like dart through the hallway, and she gets a knife, and then she goes outside with the phone and a knife. And this part is when I feel for her so much in this opening scene because again I'm like, oh, it's Drew Barrymore. She's gonna make it out of this. We're good.
Yeah.
So we see her waiting outside, and Ghostface is like rummaging through the house, and we see a car coming like towards the house, but it's still like a bit away. So you're she's looking like she has her like rescue right there, but it's also so far away. And so she starts going around the front of the house. She's like, "Okay, I'm gonna get rescued. Like, there's someone coming to the house." But then she like goes up towards one of the windows, and Ghostface. This is an iconic shot. Obviously, he turns around and then he pops out in front of her. He smashes through the window, but she hits him with the phone. So she starts running around the house, and she runs past poor Steve. And then again, the car is coming like right up to the house. So she's like, "Oh shit, I gotta run to the car." But then Ghostface, he like bursts through the house and attacks her. So she's sprinting, 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 and he gets her and he stabs her in the chest, knocks her down to the ground, and she fights back. She gives a punch out, but then we get a really, really gnarly. He stabs her right through the throat right after that, and it's like, oh. So she kicks him off, and then this part gets me every time, no matter how many times I've seen it. She's walking towards her house, towards the front door, and we see two older people who we assume are her parents walking towards to go in the house. And she's trying to yell "mom," but she can't because she can't speak because she just got stabbed in the throat. And it just gives me so. Oh, I feel so sorry for her in this scene. She's just trying to yell "mom, mom," but she can't, so they don't
I
hear
don't.
her.
I don't feel sorry.
And then, oh, you don't feel sorry? Oh, it's heart it gives me
She's
it's
stupid.
heart-wrenching.
She's
It's
stupid.
heart-wrenching to me. It's so
You
heart-wrenching
said you
that
feel
she's trying to
bad for
call
her
for her
when she goes
parents.
outside, but this is where she like loses all credibility for me. Like I get pissed off every time when she sees the car and she starts crawling, and then she stands up in the window with no curtains, like a wide open window. Like
Again, her
I
state of
I would have
mind in this
handled
scenario.
nah. I would have still handled that way better.
Okay,
And
but you
I
don't
just
feel
want to
bad when she
I
gets
just
stabbed in the
yeah,
throat?
I mean, I guess, but I like again, seeing me like seeing this so many times, I just get pissed off every time
Well
now. So
well,
like, I
because
don't
we're
really feel bad
desensitized to the
anymore.
scene,
Yeah,
yeah.
but I just want to go back. Like Ghostface in this whole opening sequence is so cool and different because, like you said, he's commenting on like everything she shouldn't do, and like, oh, you
Right,
shouldn't say who's there and stuff. So like, he's one of us, like he's the audience, but
right,
he's also the killer. So it's a
right.
weird like
Well, he's taunting her with these, cliches.
yeah, it's a weird relationship Ghostface has with the audience in this scene because like he's saying everything that we're thinking, but he's
Right.
also the killer. So like you're not rooting for him, but it makes him cooler, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's the meta of it all.
Yeah.
But also, if you put yourself in her shoes, I mean, if someone knocks my door, I'm gonna yell, "Who's there?" But she's also like clearly not in the great state of mind at this point. She just saw her boyfriend get killed.
Hmm.
She's
Yeah.
alone in a house. She has no way of, she knows there's a killer outside. She knows she's pretty much in fight or flight mode. But yeah, I always that part when she's like trying to scream for her mom. I'm like, oh,
I know. I'm
Casey,
always
Drew
just yelling.
Barrymore,
I'm
you're
like,
you're
do
you're
something, like
you're killing it
throw a
right now.
shoe or
She's
something. Yeah, I
killing it.
know. Yeah.
She's like her acting is just on another level in this
I just
scene. But
want every time I watch it, I just hope that the parents turn
turn, like
around. Yeah.
turn and look.
It's like
I'm like,
maybe they'll
oh,
turn
she's
this
so
time. No,
close.
damn.
And
Yeah.
Wes is so smart because she's so close to making it, and then he just takes that away from us and her in an instant because her parents go inside, and then Ghostface approaches behind her, knocks her down, and she just starts getting stabbed. She
Well,
takes his mask off though,
like
so
you
she
said,
does get to
he's
see who it is. Yeah,
yes, he's playing with us because Drew,
yeah,
like you said, is the biggest star in the movie. So like
right,
we're thinking right now, plot armor, plot armor. There's no way she's
right,
gonna actually die. And then
right,
there's moments throughout the scene, especially when the parents get there, where you're like, okay, this is the part where she gets away or where she survives.
right,
Oh no, okay, no, this is the
right.
part. And then he just completely puts that out on us, and we're like, wait, what? No, her
I
parents
know.
didn't
It's
save
and
her.
side
What the
note, she
fuck?
was actually originally cast as Sydney Prescott in the movie.
Oh, really?
Before, and then she had the suggestion actually because she's like, okay, this movie is like a subversion of expectation. She's like, why don't I want to be the opening kill? So she actually
Mm,
had that suggestion to be the opening kill. But I'm so
mm,
thankful because there's only one Sydney Prescott. It's Nev Campbell. But so she was in on it too, and she was excited to do this. Like she's like, I'm a big name, and I'm gonna get killed off in the first 10 minutes of a horror movie. Like that hasn't happened
yeah.
since Janet Leigh, and she made it through halfway through that movie at least. But so yeah, so Ghostface knocks her down, and then we get the parents like going in the house. They see like the patio is door was broken and they see the popcorn still popping and catching on fire. So the mom puts that out. But then we just intercut that with her getting stabbed. And then her dad tells the mom to, like, go call the police, get on the phone. And this is another scene that gets me every time. It tugs at my heartstrings. When she picks up the phone to dial 911, Casey still has the phone in her hand because she
Mhm.
was going to dial 911. And her mom hears Casey like slowly dying and like losing life. So she's like, Casey, baby, is that you? And then the phone hangs up. The dad comes out and she's like, oh my God, like, not my baby, not my girl. And then he tells her to go out the house and go down to the Mackenzies, which, if anyone's a Halloween fan, Laurie Strode tells Tommy and Lindsay in the original to go down to the Mackenzies after they're attacked in the house. So that's another little homage to Halloween right there, which I love. I always get a kick out of that. So she opens the door to go out, and we see Casey's body hung from the tree, her insides on the out, and her parents had to see her dead body like that. And that is the opening scene of Scream. My favorite scene of all time. My favorite opening of all time. It's insane.
Mhm.
Perfect. Perfect.
Yeah, we don't get a title card because that happened, like you said
Yep.
in the beginning.
So
So,
it just cuts to
but
black. We zoom up, like we have like weird camera motion, like zooms up to her body, her face, and then we cut to black.
mhm.
So that's how we know the
This
opening
is one
scene's
of the
over.
more elaborate kills, I would say, in terms of like
It's
staging the
vicious.
body and
It's
stuff.
vicious too because it's not like anything crazy. Like her head's not ripped off or like something crazy, but like the amount of times she's stabbed and like the stab through the throat, and then when he places her body like that for her parents to find, it's just like it feels dirty, and it might be the most brutal kill to me in the franchise just because of how extended it is, how long it takes her to actually die.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So yeah,
I
just
agree.
and nothing. I mean, no. I don't think any opening has really lived up to that. Just in general, not even the Scream franchise alone. It's just a perfect opening.
That's a big statement. I would have to I couldn't really comment on that in the moment. I'd have to like sit down and think about that, but that's got to be up there for sure for me too. I mean, I don't know if it's number I can't say it's number 1, but talk about perfect ways to set up
It's
a movie. It's so like, all right, we're in for a ride. Like at this
exactly
point, and again, at this point, we don't have the big trio. This is the first movie, so like nobody is safe in this movie, and we
right,
get that right off the bat.
and that's what Wes wanted to make sure from that opening scene that Drew Barrymore's dead. No one's safe.
Exactly.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And little side note, when he was filming the opening scene, Bob Weinstein, that asshole, he was like trying to get Wes to like film with different costumes because he wasn't sure about the mask. He's like, "Can you try it with like 15 different masks and then film it with all the masks and then we'll choose?" And Wes is like, "No, I'm gonna film the opening scene. I'll send you that, and then you can give me any you know, any points you want on the opening scene." So he filmed the opening scene, sent it to him, and he's like, "Okay, I'm gonna leave you alone. This is a perfect piece of film right here." So he didn't bother him for the rest of the shoot because of that opening scene.
Hmm.
So it's pretty Wes is just
That's
on another
cool.
level.
Yeah.
But so after that opening scene, we cut to black, and then we're introduced to our heroine, the final girl, my favorite final girl of all time, the star, Sydney Prescott, played by Nev Campbell. She's in her bedroom in her little nightgown, and then we get she hears something at the window. She goes up to the window, and it's Billy. He pops up. Billy, played by Skeet Ulrich, is her boyfriend, and she pretty much tells him you have to go, but he hides behind her bed because her dad comes knocking on the door. And he's like, "Oh, I heard a scream." She's like, "Nope, no, you didn't." And we find out that her dad is leaving in the morning for a work expo, so he's not going to be around. And he keeps telling her, "Oh, what hotel I'm staying at? I'm staying at the Hilton." She's like, "Yeah, yeah, 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 yeah." So he pretty much yells him to do that, and then he goes to bed. And then Billy, pops up and he's like, "Close call." And then I love how he tells her that, like, I was at home and The Exorcist was on, but it was edited for TV, and it got me thinking of you. And I love how his analogy for their like relationship is that The Exorcist was edited for TV, just like their sex life. Pretty much is what he told her. He's like, "Oh, we were starting out hot and heavy, but now I feel like we're edited for TV as well." I'm like, "Oh my god, this guy."
Yeah.
I love how everything in life is like reference to a movie. It cracks me up,
I know.
but it's so funny. So then they do a little like hooking up, but she stops him. It's like, you gotta go before my dad kills you. And then she asks if he'll settle for a PG-13 relationship, and she gives him a little flash before
Yeah.
he leaves. I love how this whole movie is just basically commenting on movies. So like even in that scene alone, it's just they're talking about movies and
Yeah, I know.
ratings, which I'm a
Yeah.
geek and I talk about that all the time. So just I love it. I love it.
Yeah, this scene is so sappy and, like, it's
Oh, I think
it's,
it's
like, over
perfect.
the top. It's a little
No
over the top
way.
for me. Yeah.
No.
The dialogue, yeah, it's a
But
little
I mean, we're this is spoilers obviously because we're getting into it, but I love how Billy is like distracting her with this talk and like hooking up with her and the music because in the other room, Stu is capturing her dad because we know he doesn't ever make it for his work trip. So when he's doing that, Stu's taking her dad in the
Oh,
other room.
I never
So
put that together. I thought he got
yes.
captured on his way out. That's why his
No.
car was crashed. Okay.
Mm-mm.
So they do you think they get him in that moment?
I do. I do.
Okay.
Because he says I'm leaving early for work, you know, you when I get up, you won't see me. He tells Sydney that. So they just took his car right then and there
Oh,
and they
okay.
took him.
Interesting.
So
Hmm.
she pretty much kicks him out, and then we cut to the next day, Woodsboro High, the high school, one of the most iconic high schools in horror. I love the setting of the high school. The fountain scene, we'll get to it, but it's so good. So she shows up to school, Sydney, and there's reporters everywhere. She doesn't know what happened yet. We get a little glimpse of our other part of the main trio, Gail Weathers. She's reporting for Top Story at the school campus. But then we get introduced to Tatum, played by Rose McGowan. She's Sydney's best friend. She's like, "Can you believe this? Did you hear what happened?" She says, Casey and Steve were gutted last night and killed. Her mom and dad found her hanging from a tree." And then she goes, "My brother Dewey, who's another part of our main trio, David Arquette, Tatum's brother. He says that it was the worst crime they've seen in years, even worse than." But then she like stops what she's saying. She's like, "Well, it's bad." So we know there's something a little weird with that. So then we cut to Sydney in the classroom, and she gets called to her principal's office, who's Principal Henry, played by Henry Winkler. Any Happy Days fans? So funny. But so then we get introduced to Dewey. He's a Deputy Dewey Riley, and then Sheriff Burke. So they're pretty much questioning her about Casey's death. Did you know her? Blah blah blah. She didn't know her that well. She just sat next to her in English class. And then we get introduced to the rest of our crew at the iconic fountain scene of the movie. I love their school setting. It's so good. But so we have Sydney, Billy, Tatum, Stu, and Randy. Stu's played by Matthew Lillard, and Randy's played by Jamie Kennedy. Again, these characters are so iconic, and they're the best crew of characters, best friend group in a slasher movie right here because they're all so developed. But so they start talking about the murders, and Stu and Randy are like, it takes a man to do something like that. And Sydney asks, she's like, "How do you gut someone?" And then Stu like slowly starts describing like you take a knife and you slit them from the groin to the sternum. And Billy's like, stop. She's getting upset. And then Randy brings up a point. She's like, "Didn't you used to date Casey, Stu?" And he's like, "Yeah, for 2 seconds." And Tatum gets a little bit upset. He's like, "I dumped her for you." And Randy's like, "I thought she dumped you for Steve." And I just love their like how they play off each other. Again, Matthew Lillard, his comedic timing is so fucking brilliant in this movie. It's so good.
Mhm.
And then, but Tatum does give him an alibi because they're all like going back and forth a little bit. And I think this, I don't want to bring up the later movies, but in Scream 5, how they like immediately start like going back and forth and accusing each other. This movie does it so much better. So much better. How it's like subtle. It's not like you're the killer, you're the killer, you're the killer. They're all just like, "Oh, where were you last night? Where were you last night?" It's just too much. They went too far in Scream 5 with that. So Tatum, anyway, she gives him an alibi. She's like, "Stu was with me last night." And then I love how Randy's like, "Was that before or after you sliced and diced?" So good.
Yeah.
But then Tatum was like, "Where were you last night?" And Randy's like, "Working, thank you." He works at the video store. And again, I connect to Randy so much because like I'm such a film geek and nerd. He's annoying as hell, but I love him at the same time because he's the movie nerd of the group. He knows everything about horror movies. But
Yes. Yeah.
then Stu is just like, "I didn't kill anybody." And then Billy gives him a weird look. He's like, "Nobody said you did." And then Randy goes, she's like, did you put her liver in the mailbox? Because I heard her liver was found in the mailbox," in his like creepy voice. And then Stu Tatum's getting mad because she sees her best friend Sydney getting upset. And then Stu goes to Randy, "You better leave her alone." Leave her alone. It's so stupid, but it's so funny. But then Sydney gets uncomfortable and she leaves. You can tell that by her reaction, she has this like unspoken trauma that we don't know about yet. So she leaves, and then we cut to her house. She's arriving from her bus. And I don't know what these parents do in this movie, but every single house is like gorgeous and huge and beautiful. I mean, from Casey's house to Sydney's house to Stu's house, I'm like, damn, where do these parents work? But so yeah, beautiful house, and we find out that she gets on the phone with Tatum, and we find out that she's gonna stay over Tatum's because she's obviously uncomfortable. She doesn't want to be home alone, and she pretty much tells Tatum, with the police reports, it feels like deja vu all over again. And then so we get a little hint that something happened, obviously, in Sydney's past. And then Tatum tells her that I'll pick you up at 7. And after that, Sydney gets her stuff together and she's flips through the channels on TV, and everyone's reporting on the murders. But then she stops on Gail Weathers, Courtney Cox. And then we find out from Gail that a year ago, Sydney's mom, Maureen Prescott, was found raped and murdered. And, Sydney obviously is upset. So she turns off the TV and she looks at a picture of her and her mom, and then she falls asleep on the couch. So that's the big reveal of Sydney's mom died, was murdered. That's why she's very sensitive to all of this that's going on. Again, it's subtle, but it adds so much to her character already, even though we've just been introduced to her a few minutes ago. So she wakes up to the phone ringing, and it's Tatum, and it's past 7 because Tatum's always running late. So I love how Tatum tells us, Sydney, she's like, "Don't worry, Casey and Steve bought it way after 10." She's like, "Oh, that's refreshing." I'm like,
Yeah.
these people are like really not understanding her PTSD right now. But
Yeah.
so but I do think Tatum's a really good friend because she always has her back. So Tatum's like, "I'm gonna stop at the video store before I come over." So she's like, "All right, just hurry up." So she hangs up and the phone rings again, and Sydney's like answers like, "Tatum, just get in the car." And then we just hear, "Hello, Sydney." Again, one of the most iconic lines when you think of this franchise is "Hello, Sydney." And she's like, "Oh, sorry, who's this?" And then he doesn't say who it is. He just says, "Hello, Sydney." And then he goes, "You tell me." She's like, "I don't know." And then he just pretty much goes into the whole. He's like, "Scary night with the murders and all. It's like right out of a horror movie." And then she goes, "Okay, Randy, you gave yourself away," because Randy, like we said, is the horror movie guy. And then he asked if she likes scary movies and what's her favorite scary movie. And then Sydney is not like us. She's like, I don't watch that shit. They're all the same. Some stupid killer stalking some big breasted girl who's running up the stairs instead of running out the front door. It's insulting. Again, calling out the plot of every 80s slasher movie right there. And then Ghostface asks her if she's alone in the house. And then she calls out Randy for not being original. And he goes, "Maybe that's because I'm not Randy." And she's like, "Well, who are you?" And then he goes, "The question isn't who am I? The question is where am I?" So Sydney asks, "Where is he?" And he goes, "Your front porch." That's the original part. So Sydney doesn't believe him, but I don't know if I were her, I'd be like, "Well, two people just got murdered last night. I don't know if I would be so quick to go to that front door." So she pretty much calls him a bluff, and she opens up the front door and goes on the porch. And then she's like, "Where are you?" And he tells her that he's right here. And then she asks if he can see her right now. And she asks, like, "What am I doing?" She puts her finger up her nose. I always laugh at that scene. But she's like, "Nice try, Randy." She's like, "Tell Tatum to hurry up at the video store." And he tells her, "If you hang up on me again, you'll die just like your mother." And then she knows that Randy would never ever do that to her friend. So she's like, "Oh shit, this isn't my friend." But then he asked her if she wants to die tonight. He goes, "Do you want to die tonight, Sydney? Your mother sure didn't." And then she's like, "Oh fuck." She's like, "Fuck you, you cretin." And she hangs up. She locks the door and she locks the chain. And then he pops up out of a closet behind her, Ghostface, and attacks her. But she puts up a fight. This girl's a fighter. So he does slam her head though, but she's able to kick him off. And then because she locked the chain, she has trouble opening the front door, so she does what she just said, that every character, every girl in a horror movie does, and she runs up the stairs because she couldn't get out the front door. But at least she tried. At least she tried. So she runs
Yeah.
up the stairs and she locks herself in the room. And she tries to dial 911, but the phone line's disconnected, obviously. But she's able to call. Like, this is 1996, and she's able to, like, dial it through on her computer, which I always like, damn, that's a little ahead of the time there. So once she gets through, Ghostface disappears. But once he disappears, Billy pops up in her window again. And she tells him, she's like, oh, the killer just attacked me, blah, 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 blah. And then the phone, a cell phone, this is another sign that this is the 90s because a cell phone falls out of his pocket. And she assumes just because he has a cell phone that he's the one who called her, which again, it's so funny, but that was a sign of the times. So she thinks it's him, and she runs out the front door, and then Dewey's there with the ghost face mask, holding it up against the front door. So and he screams. I love his little ah. So she's safe, but they arrest Billy because they don't know why he showed up, so they think it's him. So Dewey, and then I love how the sheriff shows up as they're arresting Billy, and Dewey's like, Sid's tougher than she looks. Again, they already have that like brother sister relationship, and we're still only in the first movie, and they carry that out through all 5 movies. I love their relationship so much. Great scene. It's one of my favorite phone calls. The phone call between Sydney and Ghostface, their initial call, because again, it's commentating on so much horror cliches. That discussion. I don't know how you feel about that whole set piece we just went through.
Yeah, I agree. It's a good it's definitely a good first call for him and Sydney.
Sydney, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. There's not much. Like, I'm trying to, like, as you were talking through it again, because I don't really have notes on the scene, just because it's like the
it's
pacing is so
iconic. Yeah.
well, and it's
Oh
so well done, and it doesn't drag at all. There's nothing I would like nitpick about it. Like, there's really
no,
nothing I would nitpick about this entire movie, but especially this scene. It's so I don't even know
and
the
it's
word I'm
really
looking
setting up
for.
the whodunit of it all, especially when Billy shows up. Because now we're like, oh, this is not only a slasher movie, this is a hardcore like mystery whodunit.
Yeah. It's so interesting because the chase scenes in this movie are some of the most iconic, especially the one at the end
Hmm.
in Stu's house, but they're not that long. Like, they're not actually long. I mean, we've had way longer chase scenes in other
Oh
franchises
right,
and horror movies, but
they're
they're
not
so
that long,
well
but there's so
done.
many of them. There's so many of them. That's why
Yeah.
it's so
Yeah.
iconic. Because
Yeah.
even this little chase, it's like it's a little fight and chase, but it's still like when you think of it, it's like Sydney running up the stairs in Scream One. Like that's an iconic scene. And
Mhm.
it's great. And I love how he's hiding in the house the whole time when he's telling her that he's on the front porch. Again, God, it's so clever, so clever. So yeah,
Mhm.
I just wanted to know
How
if you
did
had any
he
what your thoughts were.
no, I mean, how did he ring the doorbell?
He didn't ring the doorbell in the scene.
Oh, he doesn't ring the doorbell in this scene. You're
That was
right.
the Casey
Yeah.
Becker scene. Yeah,
Yeah, that was the Casey Becker scene, yeah.
he's taunting
Because
her.
there
He's
was
telling her that he's on the
I
front
I
porch, but
re
he's already inside the house.
okay. So he was inside the house the entire
Or
time.
Or
Because
when
there
she
was
opened the front door, he snuck in when she went on the porch. I mean, we don't know for sure when he got in the
yeah.
house. He could have
Yeah.
been on the front porch, and then when she called him a bluff, he could have ran in and hid in the closet.
Yeah, I go.
I
Yeah,
had a
that's
feeling
true.
he found a way in because when they got her dad Neil Prescott, they obviously got his keys to the house when they
Mhm.
captured him. So I had a feeling that he was already in the house. That's my take on it. Again, I've seen
Okay.
this movie so many times, so I think about in the background what Billy and Stu were doing the whole time.
I
So
try to
I
think about
think
that
that
too, and I
yeah,
try to
yeah,
think about who did what killing and who did what chase scene and stuff,
yeah.
and it's,
Well, I think Stu did this chase because Billy popped in the
Stu?
window right away.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
I
you do
think,
think
yeah, yeah.
do you
Because
think
the
that
how quickly
yeah.
that Billy pops in the window after Ghostface disappears, he'd have to like, climb up the side ladder of a house. Again, it's too much to do after just chasing her up the stairs.
Yeah, well, he was already upstairs, so he coulda just went out onto the roof, I guess,
I guess,
but
but he has
because
to
he
take
does
his
have the
robe
cell
off and
phone
all
on
that.
him.
He has to take his robe off and all that. Well, he could have been the one calling, and then Stu could have been the one hiding in the closet.
Yeah.
I mean, you could talk about
Yeah.
that. That could be a whole episode on itself, like
Yeah.
who did what.
I know.
But for me, it's
I
like to take
always
off the robe and the mask that quick, and then like I don't know. It's just I know he just has to rip a robe off a mask, but the way like he literally instantly pops up once Ghostface like leaves that area, like instantly.
yeah,
So I have a
that's
feeling
true.
Stu escaped, and
Yeah.
then Billy was waiting
So,
there the whole
yeah,
time.
Stu doesn't have an alibi, right, for this scene? Or does
No,
he?
no,
So,
we don't
if
know.
It
Because
probably
no,
could be
because
Stu.
Tatum is at
Yeah.
the video store. It's not like Tatum's with her boyfriend Stu.
Yeah,
She's getting a
and he wouldn't be
video
anywhere else.
to pick Sydney up because she's staying over.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think that's how I think it played out. Billy was, doing the calling because Billy was definitely doing the phone call because he's taunting her about her mother, and we found out at the end how how important that is to Billy because Stu
Yeah.
doesn't give a shit about that part. So
Yeah.
Billy definitely did the phone call, but I think Stu did the attack, and you can tell it was Stu because when she kicks him and he falls like that, it's like such a dumb Stu thing to do, like how he stumbles like that. So it's definitely Stu. How she like takes it, she like overpowers him, but he does get a good slamming on her head. He does.
So
I'm like,
let's
oh
say
shit, she didn't have a
so
concussion.
let's say it's Stu, and we'll say that Billy made the phone call and then Stu chased her.
Uh,
What in terms of like the meta or their story that they're concocting, what advantage did they have by having Billy pop up into the window? Like why did he show up at the crime scene, you think?
Well, I think that he wanted because his plan, he wanted to get caught in this scene because he wanted to make him cleared of being a suspect after they arrested him. So that's
Yeah.
why he's there. Yeah, he's there to protect her, but then she's suspicious of him. But then when they bring him in the next scene to the police station, he's cleared of calling her because his cell
Yeah.
phone's clean. So
I
I think
figured
this
that
is
part,
all elaborate.
but
This is all elaborate. Yeah,
to me, he's not a suspect until this scene though. So it's like he's trying
but
to
he
clear
want.
himself as a suspect, but he's
But I
not a
think,
suspect if
but
he
he
doesn't
wants
put
to.
himself in that scene. So
He's really wants to call. He's really wants to really cause her a lot of trauma. He wants her to be in
mhm,
that headspace of thinking her boyfriend could be a killer. He's an asshole.
yeah.
He really
Yeah.
wants to cause her the inflict the most pain on her as possible.
Yeah.
So I think that's really a part of it. He wants to feed into that. Well, I could be a killer, and I'm your boyfriend. He's really just
Mhm.
like I said. They're really like poor Sydney goes through the ringer in these movies, and this is the start of her even more trauma that she's going through. But yeah, they're
Uh,
taunting her. They're
especially I
100%
yeah.
taunting her.
I feel so bad for her in this movie,
I know. And again,
especially.
Nev Campbell, her acting just in this scene alone when she's like going when she's trapped in her room, I feel like her fear and the way her eyes like well up, I'm like, damn, you don't have
Yeah.
acting like this in a slasher movie. It's so good.
Mm.
So yeah, so they capture Billy, but that all right, I wanted to see what you thought about that scene. So you agreed that it's pretty expertly crafted, this whole sequence.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah,
Good.
it's right up there with the Casey Becker scene. I mean, that one is kind of just at the
Right.
top for me,
Well,
but this one's right
that's
there
long.
with
Yeah,
it.
I
I
mean,
mean,
yeah,
yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
Those are my two favorite Ghostface calls. The first one with
Oh,
Sydney, and the one with
ever.
Casey Becker. It it's hard because they're top notch. It's really hard because I do love one and oh, I don't want to talk about it yet, but I love a couple in the sequels that are like
We can
pretty
talk about them. I mean, we don't
all
have to go
timer.
too far. Yeah.
Yeah. So but
I
these
don't want to
two are
like
pretty much
I know we have episodes down the road like rankings and
right.
stuff, but I don't want to limit ourselves. So if you want to make comparisons or talk, I feel like we should be able to talk freely. So,
Yeah, I just really love because again, because I'm a Sydney guy. My favorite. I mean, I'm a really Sydney purist. So when
what
Ghostface gets to
does
her,
that mean? Sydney purist.
that I think that I'll always divert to the story being
Yeah.
prefer a story about Sydney. And I love these later movies, but I my
Yeah.
preference
Yeah.
will always be a Scream movie based around Sydney Prescott. I know it can't always be based around her, but it's my flavor.
She's
I
been
love it.
through enough, man. Let her take a movie off.
I know. I've just finally got around to letting her being okay with her taking a movie off. But I
Yeah.
do love in Scream 3
Unless she's dead.
we get
Just
no.
kidding.
We get this same kind of like Ghostface really taunts at her in Scream 3 and like really puts her through the ringer in the phone call at her house when she's like secluded. He's pretty much using her mom's voice and really getting to her. So that's another phone call that I think really affects her. That's what I was trying to compare the phone calls to. But
Oh, okay. Yeah,
it
yeah,
just
yeah. I
really
see what
gets
you're
to her
saying.
in Scream 3. He really like affects her emotionally in Scream 3 a lot. Like she
Mhm.
really is like put through it in that movie,
Yeah.
trauma wise. But anyway, so getting back to this, do we arrest
I
Billy?
think it's I think another layer to these calls too, why they're your two favorite is at least they stand out for me is because the two women on the other end of the line don't know what's happening right
Right,
away. So like Sydney doesn't know what Ghostface sounds like.
right.
And then to get that moment where she's like, "Oh shit, like
Well,
this isn't my
like I
friend,"
said, she thinks it's
just like
Randy, like
with
her friend.
Casey.
Right, right.
Yeah,
She thinks
just
it's
like with
Randy, and
Casey.
Casey thinks it's a random, just like fucking around.
Yeah, until she doesn't. Like the whole 180 switch during
Right.
the phone calls. Is what makes them so iconic, I
And
think.
I love how Ghostface, like, in with Casey, it's like, "I wanna know who I'm looking at." She's like, "Oh, shit. Shit's gonna go down." And
Mhm.
with Sydney, it's like, "You hang up with me again, you'll die just like your mother." She's like, "Okay, this
Yeah.
is not my friend. This is not my
It's
friend
like
right now."
those 2, like,
Right,
fucking lines
right,
that just hit you
right.
right there. You're like, "Oh,
They both
shit."
well, at least Sydney realized in this moment, like, this is the killer who just killed Casey Becker and Steve the night before calling me.
Mhm.
Right in that moment, she's like, "Okay." But,
Yeah, and this is the first time we see Ghostface, since Casey Becker, and
right,
he killed her pretty handily, so, like, to see Sydney come out on top now is
right,
pretty, like, pretty cool. You're like, "Okay,
right.
like, she escaped,"
That's what I love
you
when
know.
Dewey says, "She's tougher than she looks. This girl's been through a lot,
Yeah.
but she has some fight in her."
Mhm.
And this is still like, I mean, her evolution through the franchise is so special to me. But even in this first movie, when she's still like the quote unquote main victim, she still is like being a badass in this movie. She still has fight. I mean, by the time Scream 3 comes around, she's like, "I'm tired of this shit. Let's go." But
Yeah.
in this first movie, she's still like, an innocent like high school kid who has to
Mhm.
her mom just died and she's trying to fight off this killer, she's going through a lot. But
Yeah.
so I just love how Dewey just makes that comment because I love their relationship. He knows that she's a fighter already. Um, but then Tatum shows up, as Billy's getting arrested. She's like, "Oh, what the fuck's happening?" I love how she shows up so late. But as Tatum shows up, Gail and her cameraman Kenny also show up because Gail always wants to grab a story. Um, so Dewey takes Sydney to the station, and then Tatum's going back to her car to meet them at the station. And I love how Tatum sticks up to Sydney for Gail because Gail's pretty much like, "Is that Sydney?" And then Tatum's like, "Leave her alone. She's been through enough." She's like, "You're a real pain in the ass," and she goes away. And I also love like Gail is such a bitch in this movie, and it's my least favorite. Not my least favorite performance. It's my least favorite Gail because obviously her character grows throughout the franchise too, but she really is not a good person in this movie until the end.
Yeah. Did,
But,
we gloss over the first time she meets Dewey at the school? Didn't
that
we
didn't
talk
happen
about a
yet. Yeah,
little?
that didn't happen
Oh,
yet.
okay, that didn't
Yeah,
happen yet,
it's
yeah,
a
okay.
little yeah, we're still, like, really getting introduced. The only time I really saw
Yeah.
Gail is, like, in the beginning when she's on the campus and then on the TV with Sydney. But, so Gail shows up with her camera guy, and I love she's like, "Jesus, hurry, the camera." And, of course, she misses Sydney because they're going to the police station, and this is such an iconic, like, Gail bitch line. She's like, "Kenny, I know you're about 50 pounds overweight, but when I say hurry, please interpret that as move your fat tub of lard ass now. I die laughing." Courtney Cox's delivery of
I
that
know,
line is so
I
funny.
know.
I laugh
Especially
every
because
time she says that.
it's Monica, yeah,
Yeah, it's
like
Monica Geller, but
yeah,
it's so funny
um,
because she's such a bitch. I love it.
at this point, Tatum, I mean, prime suspect, right?
Well, that's what
Like,
I'm saying. Like I
yeah,
said, this scene really introduced the whole whodunit because Tatum shows up quote unquote late because she's at
super
the
late.
video store.
Maybe I
Like
didn't
she's supposed
think
to be
about
there at
that
7.
when, this movie first came out, when I first watched it, but, like, I wonder if, now that we have 5 movies, like, maybe if you don't watch this movie first and you somehow watch the sequels first, like,
Right,
if I had watched the sequels first and then went back to this movie, like, I'd be like, "It's 100% Tatum."
right.
Like,
Well,
maybe I
even
wasn't thinking about that in my primitive Scream mind because
right.
I'm not thinking it's a woman, or I'm not thinking, like, super whodunit, but yeah, like, Tatum, man, super suspicious, and
Yeah,
she would know how to trigger Sydney with her
right.
mom because they're just
Who
best
knows Sydney more than
friends,
her best
so,
friend like that?
yeah.
Yeah, I agree that the way that they did, and again, I want to like in this movie they do it so it's not like so force fed down your throat.
Mhm.
Like some of these other whodunits, it's too like, okay, who is it? Who's it? Who's it? Is it this person? This person? It's just
It
like
was
little
Scream 4
hints. It's
does it a lot, and, I like Scream 4 a lot, but,
Scream 4 does it a lot, but
Scream
Scream
4
5 does it a lot, a
forces it.
lot. Scream
Well,
5 does
Scream
it a
4
lot.
really forces, like, the red herrings, like, with Judy and stuff,
Oh
and
yeah,
it
yeah, yeah.
feels a little forced, but
Okay.
yeah, this movie does it. It handles
It
it
just does it
perfectly.
like the perfect little hints. Like they're just
Mhm.
like red herrings. That's all they are. It's not like, oh,
And
a
I get why the
backstory about
sequels do it because you're
no, and
looking
they're
for it
playing on
more,
it.
so they have
You have
to
to one
play
up the
on it.
original. That's literally the
Yeah.
point of that's the commentary, and it's hard to critique some of these movies because they're critiquing themselves within the movie. So again, and I mean that's why I think it's so brilliant. But yeah, I love the way I agree that Tatum. It's a little sketchy that she's taking forever at the video store, but again, in her shoes, I also used to take forever at the video store, and I couldn't make my decision up about what movie to rent.
Yeah.
But so then we cut to the police station, and we find out that there was no record of Neil Prescott, Sydney's dad, checking in at the hotel. So Dewey and Sheriff Burke don't know where he is. So that's another red herring right there. We don't know where her dad is. So
Oh
was he
yeah, they've set up
captured?
the
Is he
dad.
in
I
on it?
mean, he's
Right,
he's the one they obviously for obvious
right.
reasons because
On
he's the one
purpose. Right,
that the killers are setting up too. So
right,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
So then we get, and I don't know if you know the Sheriff Burke. He plays one of the cops in the original Nightmare on Elm Street as well. Nancy's dad's partner. So I just love
Yes, I
how,
did know that. I did
yes,
see that
yes,
somewhere. Yeah, that's pretty
yes.
cool. Yeah.
So I love again Wes Craven really giving these little like Easter eggs for us horror
Oh
fans.
yeah.
I love
I
it
mean,
so
the
much.
janitor. It's like one of my
I
favorite scenes.
cannot wait. It's so good.
Yeah,
I
it's so
smirk every
funny.
time. And you can tell how fun he's having doing that cameo. It's so
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
But so Sheriff Berkey questions Billy and his dad Hank, and Hank's like, "Why don't you just check the phone records?" He's like, "Thanks, Hank, we're on it." I love how much of an asshole Burke is too.
Yeah.
But Billy's like, I didn't kill anybody, and then Burke tells him that he pretty much has to hold him until they get the phone records back because this is 1996. So it's going to take till the morning or whatever. But then we go outside, and of course, there's a bunch of reporters there. And Gail arrives at the police station with the other reporters, and we go back in, and then Billy's taken away, and he's like yelling at Sydney. I love how they take him out, like in front of again, poor Sydney. Like they take him out right across in front of her to take him to his cell. Like this poor girl doesn't need to see him right now. She thinks he just attacked her, but he's pretty
Mhm.
much like, "Come on, Sydney, you know me. Look at me." She doesn't. But then we also find out that there's no way to track the purchase of the costume because Dewey tells Burke that they're sold at like every store in that state. So again,
All
it's
these sort.
impossible to
Yeah.
track who bought it. And again, that's another funny looking back because when they made the movie, they didn't know if this costume and mask would be iconic, and now it's like the best selling Halloween costume of all time, literally
Hmm.
of all time. So again, that little they were meta because they knew how popular it was going to be. But I love this next scene between Dewey and Tatum. It cracks me up so much because Sydney Tatum wants to go home and take Sydney to her house so they can, get out of the situation. And then I love how she's like, Deputy Dewey, let's go. She's like, and I love how he's like, what did mom tell you? When I wear this badge, you treat me like a man of the law. It's so funny. I
I
love their
know.
brother sister relationship too because all they do is go at it this entire movie. It's
Yeah,
so
yeah.
realistic to how a brother and sister are in real life. But so Dewey tells them he's like, oh no, we're gonna go out the back alley. Actually, I think Burke tells them to go out the back alley. Don't make Sydney go by all this like reporters and paparazzi. So they go through the back alley, and then Dewey goes to get the car. But Gail, being Gail, she knows her way around, and she shows up in the alley. And Tatum pretty much is like, leave us alone, go away. But Sydney's like, it's okay, Tatum. She's just doing her job. And then Gail's like, oh, thank you, I am. And I love how Sydney is just like, so how's the book coming along? And then Gail's like, good, it'll be later. It'll be out later this year. She's like, Sydney's like, oh, look for it. And then Gail, again, this is an iconic line. Gail's like, I'll send you a copy. And then Sydney just punches Gail in the face. I love that scene so much. So good.
Yeah.
So
It's so
that's our
funny.
first
Like
interaction of them two.
that's how they interacted for the
Yep.
first time. You go
And
from that
and
to Scream
again,
5.
I know that's what I'm gonna
I
say.
keep
The
saying Scream 5,
evolution.
so everyone knows what I'm talking about. Scream
It's Scream
2022.
Five. It's
I
Scream.
don't know.
It's Scream Five.
Okay. I
I
don't
call it
wanna, like,
Scream when we're
offend you.
talking about it because I don't want to say every time we can't say Scream 2022. That's stupid.
Yeah,
I'm
okay.
calling it for
I didn't know
all.
if that was appropriate or not
It's
in the
it's
presence of
appropriate when
such
we're
a
talking about
horror.
it. I think
Okay.
because yeah, I call it Scream Five when I'm discussing it with people too.
Okay.
It's just hard to say Scream 2022 every time. Just like it, because
Yeah,
every other
yeah.
Scream movie is like Scream, Scream 2, Scream 3, Scream 4. It's not like
I know.
Halloween where it's like God knows how many timelines there are.
Mhm.
So after that scene, which again I love, like you said, the evolution of the first time we see them interact is a punch to how we see them the first time they interact in Scream 5 when they embrace each other. Oh, I love
And
love.
that's the proper term, evolution, because
Yes.
it's not a flip of a switch. It's
Nope.
a
It
slow,
takes 5 movies.
gradual.
It takes 5
Yeah.
movies.
I don't know what's a bigger evolution, them two or Dewey's character. is
Exactly.
Dewey from the first movie compared to the fifth movie. I mean, he's
Exactly.
like, yeah,
And again, we should mention
this
that
is
our trio is, I mean, I know you guys know this, but our trio of the franchise is Sydney, Dewey, and Gale. And they have more character development throughout this franchise than any other horror franchise, and maybe even more most franchises of all time. The way they
I would yeah
grow,
yeah. Especially Dewey and Gale. Not that Sydney doesn't, but Sydney's the final girl. Sydney's the
right?
main
The
girl. So
star,
like,
Sydney the victim, Sydney the
she's the
star.
star.
Yes,
So obviously she's gonna get the story tailored for her progression. But for them to bring in Dewey and Gale and have them progress so much in these movies too is really
it's so
unprecedented. Like
smart.
you said, it like to have
You
that
don't get
final
this.
three.
This is not what you get in
Yeah.
horror movies usually. So I love like what I tell people is I go to these movies to see these three and are I mean not anymore, but
Mhm.
these characters just as much as I do to see Ghostface killing people. They're as important to me as the killer.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah,
don't
they've
get
really handled them
that doesn't
great.
happen. That doesn't happen in Friday the 13th.
Uh-huh.
Child, all these franchises you go to see Freddy
No.
Krueger killing people. You
I mean, look
don't
at
go to
Halloween.
see
Halloween
even
butchered,
Halloween.
Jamie.
Right.
Like they
Right.
totally dropped the ball on her and
Right.
stuff,
Laurie
So
Strode's important to a few movies, but not every movie.
no, no,
And
not at all.
but these three are like they are Scream. There's no other way to say it.
It's their
So again,
story.
it's so
Yeah.
special. Yeah, exactly.
This might
Um,
be my favorite Dewey. I don't know, like
okay.
iteration of Dewey, just because he's so
He's
goofy
lovable
and
and goofy, but
lovable,
he
but
means well, and he wants to
and
his protector.
yeah, and he
Yeah.
hooks up with Gail. Like
Oh yeah.
you don't
He
see
shoot
that.
he
Like
shoots his
he's
shot and he
got game.
succeeds.
He's
Oh
got
yeah.
game
Oh
for like
yeah.
a goofy dude, and
I know.
it's like the underdog. Like, all right,
And I
like
love that
let's
too because you would think Gail would like wouldn't even waste her time with someone like him, but she's like charmed by him too by the end of the movie.
yeah, that's why I brought up their first interaction, which we haven't gotten to yet
Right,
because I
right,
wanted to
right,
talk about that, but
right.
we'll
Well, you
get
think
there
she's
soon.
using him at first in that first interact just for information, but I can
Yeah, that
even
was my
feel the
question.
flirting. I even feel the
I
flirtation
I think it's both.
vibes. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Well, she's
She
doing because in this movie she's ruthless. She wants to get her story. She wants to do whatever she has to do to get info and be the top reporter.
mhm.
But she also had you can tell in her interaction she's like the look in her eyes. She's like, oh, like this guy's a charming, lovable dude.
Well, they play with your mind because the whole movie you think that she's just like using him because he's
Right,
this like lovable, like
right,
goofy guy who's gonna like give into a pretty face. But then
right,
they hook up and you're like,
right.
oh, wait a minute, like
And
maybe
talk
that
about
was
chemistry. I mean, I know
kind
they
of
had a real life
genuine.
relationship, but the chemistry in this movie is just flowing through the screen.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
crazy. But so after she punches Gail, they go back to Tatum and Dewey's house, and they're getting ready for bed. And there's a phone call, and Tatum and Dewey's mom says, it's for you, Sid. And Tatum tries to say take a message, but Sydney's like, no, it could be my dad. I'll take it. So she answers the phone, and it's Ghostface, and he says, "Hello, Sydney. Poor Billy boyfriend. An innocent guy doesn't stand a chance around you." And then he says, Looks like you fingered the wrong guy again." And then she pretty much is yelling, "Who are you?" And then he says, "Don't worry, you'll find out soon enough. I promise." And then I love how Dewey comes out with his gun,
I know.
and then he picks up the phone. He's like, "Hello." There's
I
nowhere
know.
there. How can you not love Dewey? I just want to like give him a hug every
I
time he
know.
pops up in the movie. But I always laugh when he like comes out with the gun. He's like, "Hello."
Yeah. I know. And then it just
So then
cuts.
we cut to the next morning. After that, I love how that ends the night. Dewey saying
Yeah.
hello. It's so
I
good.
know.
So we cut to the next morning, and we get the iconic instrumental of Red Right Hand, which in my opinion is the song of the Scream franchise. So we get that, and then we see on the morning TV. This is when we get our cameo from Liev Schreiber. He plays Cotton Weary, but they didn't know he was going to be an important factor in the sequels. So we just get a
Uh,
little glimpse of him literally being like walked to a cell in an orange jumpsuit. But we get the reporter saying he's awaiting his hearing on a death sentence because he's the one that Sydney accused and said she saw leaving the scene of her mother's murder. So Sydney's the one who put him in jail and in this situation. So that's all we
mhm.
get of Cotton visibly in this movie. So we know
Yeah.
right there that's who's responsible for Maureen Prescott's death. So we think. So Dewey tells her at breakfast that Billy was released, his cell phone was clean. Which again, this is why going back to what you said earlier, this is why I think he wanted to get caught. He wanted to be seen as innocent in the eyes of everybody, but he wanted to still have that seed of doubt in Sydney's head and fuck with her for the rest of the movie until the eventual reveal in the end. And guys, if you're listening to this, you know who the killers are. I mean, this movie is a classic for a reason. But so Dewey says they're checking every account in the county, but it's going to take them a little bit of time. Again, this is 1996, but he's like, "We'll find him, we'll find him." And then, but they still can't find her dad either. So then we cut back to the school, and we get another cameo of an iconic horror actress. We haven't covered the movie yet, but we've discussed it briefly on our villains episode. Linda Blair, who plays Reagan in The Exorcist, cameos as a reporter, and she goes up to Sidney. She's like, "How does it feel to be almost brutally butchered? People want to know. They have a right to know." So that's our other cameo, which I love. My
Mhm.
dad gets a kick out of that cameo, obviously, because he loves his Linda Blair and
Yeah.
Exorcist.
Yeah.
But so then we get Sydney because Gail's there, obviously, because she's a reporter, so she's back at the school. And then Sydney tells Tatum, "I'll be right back." And Tatum gets so annoyed that Sydney's going back up to Gail. She's like, "Come on, don't give her the time of day." Again, I really like Tatum. People give Tatum a bad rap, but I think she's a really good friend. But Sydney approaches Gail, and she's like, "I'm not here to fight. I just want to talk." And then she tells Gail that you owe my mother. And then Gail's like, "I don't owe you shit. You know, someone was gonna cover that murder. It was uh the murder was in Spotlight last year. A reporter's gonna cover it." And then she's like, "You got what you want. Cotton Weary's in jail. They're gonna gas him." And then Sydney's like, "Oh, you think he's innocent?" And Gail's like, "Yeah, I've talked to him several times, and his story's never changed. I think you falsely identified him." And then Gail's like, "He only admitted to having sex with your mother because apparently she got around." And then Sydney was like, "He left his coat after he killed my mom." He's like, "No, someone framed him and put the coat in his car, this bloody coat." So we see that Gail is really on the train of Cotton's innocent. She's like, "You saw someone leave wearing his coat. You didn't see for sure." And then Sydney's like, you can tell she's almost like beginning to doubt herself, but she's like, "No, Cotton killed my mother." And then Gail's like, "You're not so sure anymore, are you?" And I love how Gail can kind of see through her at this point because she sees that Sydney, with everything that's going on, she's like, "Oh my God, did I like falsely
Yeah.
identify my mom's murder?" And I love that scene. It's an important. I brought it up because it's an important scene between them, an important scene for Sydney's like evolution in this movie. She's like, "Oh my God, is who killed my mom doing this, or was it Cotton?" So she's kind of like self doubting in this moment. And then I love how after she leaves, Gail's right. If I'm right about it, she's like tells Kenny, "If I'm right about this, I could save a man's life. Do you know what that would do for my book sales?"
Yeah.
Again, this is a Gail that is not like the Gale we know today. And I love how she plays it like it's so different. And I love her character development. But I always crack up at that scene too when she says that.
Mhm. Yeah, me
But
too.
it's so good. But then Sydney goes and approaches Stu and Tatum when they're at their lockers, and she's like, "Have you seen Billy? I'm sure he's pissed." And Stu's like, "What? That you accuse him of murder?" "No, after you branded him the Candyman." "No, he's heartbroken." And again, with the movie references, but Stu has like no clue how to like relate to a girl, and he's like doing it on purpose, obviously, because we know ends up being one of the killers. But he's like, "No, his heart's broken." And then we see these two guys who are assholes, who like running through the school dressed up as Ghostface. And to be Sydney, that's so fucked up. You just got attacked by someone in that costume, then you have two random assholes in school like running past her. So
Yeah.
fucked up. So fucked up. So Sydney gets upset and she runs away from that and she runs into Billy. And then we get this Billy Sydney scene, and he's such an asshole. He's such an
I
asshole in
know.
this scene.
He's
He's
such a
such a
dick.
dick. He's
I
such a
know.
dick. So she tells him that the killer called me last night, so I know it's not you. And he's like, "Yeah, see, it couldn't have been me. I'm in jail." I love how his fingerprints are like still fresh from from the
Yeah.
jail when they fingerprinted him. But he's really an asshole. He goes way too far. And again, he's doing this on purpose because he's trying to get in her head. And then he goes, "You haven't been the same since your mother died. It's been a year." And she's like, "No, it's been a year tomorrow. It hasn't been a year yet." And then he pretty much tells her that she should get over it. And then he's like, "My mom left my dad, and I got over it." And she's like, "Yeah, your parents split up. Your mom's not lying in a coffin somewhere." And it's like, "Yeah, dude, what the fuck are you doing right now?" So she runs away. And I love how he goes, he's like, "Stupid." And he hits himself in the head.
Yeah.
So, but
Is this
yeah,
where
he's
she
not
says the
not a cool
line?
dude. What?
The like I'm sorry, my life isn't
Yeah,
perfect or
yeah,
something
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
that.
yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
forget the exact quote, but it makes me crack up every
I'm
single
sorry,
time.
my whatever traumatized life isn't enough for your perfect existence or whatever. However,
Yeah,
she
he
it's
does the
so
run, the
yeah.
funny runaway.
Well,
It's
that's
so
not she doesn't
funny
do the
every
funny
time.
run. The funny run's in Scary Movie.
No, it's fucking in this movie too.
No, she, like, rushes to the
She
bathroom because she
runs
needs to
so
go
funny.
cry. No.
Come on, that you don't think
Mm-mm,
that's a funny run? Come on.
mm-mm.
The reason they did it
She's
in
carrying her
Scary Movie
bag.
is because it's
No.
funny in the original. I
No.
I think it's funny. Which is funny because she doesn't run that way like during chase scenes. It's only in that
Well, she
scene.
has her bag in her hand, like her school bag and all
Yeah.
that she's carrying.
But just like saying that line, I think, and then running away just makes
Oh,
it
like, with
extra
the
funny. Like that line just cracks me up every time. The
I feel
the
so
the way
bad for
she
her in that
delivers
scene.
it.
Yeah. I feel so
I
bad
know.
for her in that
I know.
scene.
It's like, dude, just like why even like entertain him as a boyfriend at this point? Like even if he's
I know,
innocent,
she
like
needed well, yeah,
he's
she
such
needs
a
some space
dickhead.
regardless, because he's not respecting that she, like, rightfully so, has severe PTSD from
Mhm.
not only what just happened last night, but her mom was butchered and she found her mom's body. It's
Oh yeah.
just like, "Hello, dude, read the room."
Oh yeah.
So, she runs to the bathroom, but then we cut to Principal Henry. He expels the students who dressed up as Ghostface, and I love how he's like they were like, "Oh, it's just a joke." And he goes, they're like, "It's not fair. It's just a joke." He goes, "Fair." He goes, "Fairness would be," and he's like a ruthless principal in this one. He's like, "Fairness would be to rip your insides out and hang you from a tree. We can expose you for the little desensitized shits that you are." And again, I'm like,
Like,
damn,
oh
he
shit,
is
is the principal the
savage.
killer?
He's
Yeah.
fucking savage. But
I
it
know.
does show how like people like I guess even in the 90s, but these days we're very I mean, we turn on the news every day and unfortunately something bad's on the news, but we're also unfortunately desensitized to it. So these kids are desensitized to the fact that two of their classmates were murdered and another one was just attacked last night. So again, very meta, very meta. But
Mhm.
then we cut to Sydney in the bathroom and these two fucking bitches are talking shit,
Oh
hardcore
yeah, I
shit
know.
about her. And they say some arguably more harsh stuff than Billy does to her the scene before.
Oh
So
yeah.
not to her, they're talking about her. And the one cheerleader, she's like, "Oh, she must have made it all up." And then she's like, "What if she did it? What if Sydney killed Casey and Steve because she was obsessed with Steve?" And then the other girl's like, she has her own bubble butt boyfriend, Billy. And then the cheerleader, she's like, "This is where it gets intense. Like maybe she's a slut just like her mother." And I'm like, damn. She's like, maybe her mother's death fucked her up. And I love how she's like, and teen suicide is out this year, so homicide might be a much healthier and more therapeutic expression. But I love how she like it's just so mean. Like high school kids are fucking assholes, man.
Oh yeah.
But so Sydney's obviously upset and then she leaves the stall after they leave and then she's going to like fix herself up and get herself together, but then we hear whispers and we hear Sydney, Sydney. So she turns around and then we hear it again. It gets louder and louder. And I don't know, I want to know your opinion on this because there's a debate in the Scream community. So Ghostface
Mhm.
eventually comes out of the stall and chases her. She gets away. The debate in the Scream, community online, whatever, is that half the people think it was a prank and half the people thinks that was Billy or Stu, the real killer. I think it was a killer, an actual killer.
Mm. Um, I want to do a third option if I'm allowed.
Okay. Uh
I thought maybe it was like not real.
oh, no, 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 I think it was real.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I lean on the side of a prank, but
Really?
yeah, I don't. There's really no way because like what I don't know.
It
I
could have been
mean,
Stu.
yeah, it could have. You know, you're right. It could have been. Well, it could have been either of them technically.
Well, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
guess. Well, I mean, I guess she runs right to the bathroom, so
Right,
I
so that's why
guess
I think it
what's
might
his
be
name?
Stu.
But like, he just assumed she was gonna go into the women's bathroom, and he was waiting there the whole time.
Well, she went in the
Stu.
stall. So, actually, it could have been Billy
Yeah.
because someone could have came in after her because she went right to the stall.
Oh, okay.
She was in
Well,
a
I
stall
assumed that
where she
nobody
was
came in after her because we would have heard it. Because it was just
eh,
her and then the 2 girls. I guess
well, she could
someone
have
coulda
been
came in,
yeah,
like, followed her,
I
you
think
think?
that she could have came in, like, because Sydney came in first and went in the stall, and I think
Yeah,
a Billy or Stu could have came in right
coulda
after
came
her, but,
in
like, been quiet, tiptoed,
yeah, yeah,
and then went
yeah.
to the stall to change. Because we find out that, like, he was standing on top of the toilet, so no one knew there was someone else in the bathroom.
Yeah. Yeah, okay.
But and when Sydney runs out, I mean, obviously she tells somebody that that happened, and then school's canceled for the rest of the school's canceled like unforeseeably. And I love how but even Sydney goes up to Tatum. Tatum's like, no, it was just some stupid prank. And then Sydney was like, no, it was him. I know it. So I agree with Sydney in that situation. I think
Okay.
it was. I can see both ways,
It
but I
could
mean
be, it could be. I
to
don't
do
know.
a
I'm just
prank like that vicious, like to Sydney, like taunt her in the bathroom like that, and just be a prankster. I'm like, damn, that's really harsh after
is
what
that
she
more
just
of
went through.
yeah, I mean, you just said high schoolers are fucked up though. So
They,
like
I mean, that's what I see
it could
both
have been either.
arguments, but I
I mean,
really think it had to have been a killer. The way they like whispered Sydney like that, I'm like, I
yeah.
don't know, that's a
Unless
killer.
you think it's like they like anticipated school being canceled so Stu could throw the party. But like I don't think even if you think it was Stu or the killer, I don't even think you can assume that because that's a
Yeah,
pretty
I mean,
big
it's just very interesting to me how people are
assumption.
like so split on it. But yeah, I
I
I
don't
side
really
with
have
Sydney on this one.
I don't
Okay,
really
you have
have
that, yeah.
yeah, I
Okay.
just picked the other one just to fuck with you a little bit. I don't really I've heard both sides of it too, but I
Yeah.
don't really they don't
Okay.
give you anything to really give you an answer.
Yeah, I
So
really wish that cheerleader was killed off because she was a
it's a
fucking
little I was
bitch.
just gonna say it's a little inconsequential because nothing really happens. It's just that quick little like nobody dies or
Oh yeah,
anything
yeah,
in the
yeah.
bathroom.
Well,
So
it's the catalyst that makes them cancel school, really, because there's another prank that's happening.
yeah.
Well, prank or
But I
yeah.
don't even think you can like anticipate that if you're a killer that they would have
No,
canceled school. So
no,
either
no, no, no,
way,
no. But
yeah.
Stu makes sure he thanks Sydney for
It,
being
if I had to
responsible.
guess, like now that I'm thinking about it more, I doubt that that was their intention to like make it a prank. I'm sure when they filmed it,
Yeah, I
they
don't think it
because
was
they
their
even
intention
say
to make
the
it a
Tatum
prank.
line, like you say
Right,
the Tatum line, so like
right.
they probably assumed it was like a straightforward, like it was one of
Yeah.
the killers.
It's just
Yeah.
crazy how people like how much they dissect this movie now and come up with their own
Hmm.
theories. It's pretty
I
cool.
think it's probably a result of people like really dissecting the movie
Oh
and
yeah,
like
really, really,
saying,
really.
well, technically it could have been another
Right,
prankster.
right, right,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
right. But this is when we
I
get the
guess
scene after
technically it
that.
could, but I think
But
it's just people
why
overthinking.
would someone do that? Like prank someone in a stall like that? Like go prank
I,
someone. I don't
I
know.
mean,
I
it
don't know.
makes sense. I mean, pranks are stupid, so like, I think
That's
that's
a
why it's gained so much traction because you really
yeah.
can't discredit it. I guess.
You can't discredit either way. That's why it's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But this is when we get the scene of after she goes out, after she runs out of the bathroom. We cut to Gail and Dewey, the scene that you were talking
Mm.
about, the flirting
Oh yeah,
scene,
yeah.
when she's asking him about like do we have a suspect yet? Blah blah blah. But as they're talking, again, the chemistry is like electric in this scene. But as they're talking outside of the school, Principal Henry announces on the speaker that all classes are suspended and there's a new curfew beginning tonight at 9 p.m. as a result of all everything that's going on. So Gail asks Dewey, she's like, "Have you located Sydney's father?" He's like, "Not yet." And then she's like, "Oh, he's not a." Again, Gail's pretty smart because she's a reporter. She's like, "He's not a suspect yet, is he?" And then Dewey is like, "We haven't ruled him out as a possibility." So,
Dewey
and then Dewey,
giving up. Yeah, giving up the
Dewey giving up. I
investigation.
mean,
Come
how
on,
could you
man.
not
You
to
see
Courtney
one
Cox
pretty
though?
face. I know. Yeah,
But
she's smart,
eh, yeah,
like you said.
she's smart. So I love how they have their little banter back and forth, and again, there's sparks flying. So I really love that interaction between them. I really
Yeah,
do.
like again, you I guess originally assumed that maybe it's just all like Courtney trying to take advantage of him,
Yeah.
but
And I love how she was like, my demographics for my show are like usually young men aged from 18 to 24. And then Dewey, as he's walking away, is
yeah,
like, I'm 25, but I was 24 for a whole year. Like, damn,
yeah,
he's got
because
some
he
game.
doesn't.
He's got some game.
Yeah, because he doesn't admit right away that he
Yep.
watches the show,
Yep.
and she's like, "Oh, you do watch the show?" He's like, "Yeah,
Yep.
I was 24." Yeah,
Love that. Love
I
it.
know. That's
I
why
have
I
a,
love this version of Dewey because he's so
yeah,
goofy, but he spits game to Gale.
right. Oh, he
He
does.
does.
And
Yeah,
she's eating it up. She's eating it up.
yeah.
But then, so we cut to the kids. They're leaving school. And again, Tatum's like assuring her that it was just someone playing a joke, and like since like no, I know it was him. And then Stu comes up. Fucking love Stu. He thanks Sydney for class being suspended and announces that he's having a party tonight. And then Tatum convinces Sydney to go, and I think her argument is pretty convincing because she's like, there's no safer place to be than with everyone together. I kind of get that. I
Mm.
get that.
Yeah, this is the one Sydney moment in this movie where it doesn't
She
really make
gives
sense
in to
for her
her friend.
character.
Really,
Nah, I don't.
I kind of think it's like
I don't look at Sydney. Maybe it's because I don't look at Sydney in the first half of this movie as like a big partier in general.
I don't think
And
she
then
wants to go to
like,
party, I think she wants to go to be with people.
yeah,
'Cause even when we cut
I
to the party, it's
personally
not like she's
wouldn't do
drinking it
that.
up. She's not, like,
No,
drinking it up
no.
and having, like, chugging beer and shit. She's just literally there hanging out.
Mhm. Yeah, I guess I personally wouldn't make the same decision, so I kinda, like,
Okay.
yell at
But you would go home,
Sydney
be
for
alone by
doing that.
yourself with the killer rather than being with your friend and friends?
I don't know if I would be alone by myself, but I wouldn't go to some high school party. Definitely not when there's a
That's
killer on
because
the
we watch
loose.
horror movies and that's where all the killing takes
Oh,
place.
yeah. Well, yeah, and to my point, I mean, this movie's so meta, she should have known that,
But she doesn't watch horror
you
movies,
know?
remember?
Well, she does, though, because she knows some trivia. She knows I mean, you
She
find
knows
out
just she
later
just
on.
thinks they're all the same and she
Yeah.
just thinks, "Oh, yeah." But, so
Mhm.
after that scene, we get Principal Henry's death scene, which I love because we get the iconic Wes Craven cameo. Oh, so good. So he hears a noise in his office and he goes out and it's Wes Craven wearing the Freddy sweater, mopping the floor. He's playing a janitor in this movie.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. With
I
with the
oh,
hat too, right?
yep,
Does
yep,
he have the hat too? Yeah.
yep. Oh,
It's great.
such a good man. Love him.
It's just it's just great. Yeah.
It's so good. But I love how when Principal Henry opens the closet door because he thinks someone's hiding in it, we see like his Fonzie leather jacket. I also love that Easter egg.
Oh,
We see the
yeah,
jacket
yeah.
from Happy Days in it.
He's, like, very paranoid in this scene. He heard one sound and he,
In
like,
this scene, dude,
really
the way
gets
he like
creeped out.
the way he like freaked out on his the students, he would be fired if it was 2023.
Yeah. Oh, when he
But
expels them?
yeah, fair
Yeah.
would be to rip your insides out. I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah, he
But
doesn't mess around.
he does get paranoid because well, I mean, rightfully so because there's a killer on the loose, but he does get hardcore paranoid at every
He gets
noise. He's like
hardcore because,
checking.
like,
Yeah,
he's not alone.
he's in
There's
a
a
school,
janitor outside, so,
right,
like, you assume there's gonna be a noise or 2. But
right,
he
right,
gets,
right.
like, super hardcore,
He
like,
gets
creeped
spooked, man.
out.
He gets
Like,
spooked.
almost over the top, like, the other
Oh
way.
yeah,
Usually, we blame characters for
for
not
not
being
right,
paranoid
right, right.
enough, but he's like, "Okay, dude, like, calm down, like, it's
Get it
fine,"
together, man. You're gonna
but
make it through
turns
this.
out
But
it's
it's
not
not
fine.
fine. It's
Yeah.
not fine.
Yeah.
So he closes the closet door and then he ends up closing his office door that he opened before. And
Mhm.
Ghostface is behind the door and stabs him multiple times, killing him. I love the close up shot on his eye, like as his eyeball as he dies. I don't know. I like it. It's a cool camera effect. But so Principal Henry is our next death. He's dead. And then shout out to Henry Winkler for being in the movie. Love these
Mhm.
castings. But then we cut back to Tatum and Sid. They're having a conversation outside of Tatum's house, I would assume. And Tatum's pretty much questioning whether or not Cotton Weary is telling the truth to her. So she's posing this seed of doubt, which could, again, to your point, make Tatum seem like more of a suspect because now she's pretty much questioning Sydney's um choice in accusing Cotton Weary of being the one who she saw leave her mom's murder.
Mhm.
And then Tatum's pretty much like, your dad was always out of town. Like, your mom was a very complicated woman. What if she was just having like these affairs? And then
Yeah.
Sydney pretty much says, if I was wrong about Cotton Weary, the killer's still out there. And then Tatum's just like, don't go there, Sid. You're starting to sound like some Wes Carpenter flick. Oh, again, that line, because Wes
Yeah.
is one of my two favorite directors in the same line,
Yeah.
Wes Craven and John Carpenter. Love it.
I
But
gotta give Sydney a lot of credit in this movie because she really does, instead of getting super defensive with Gail and with Tatum, she really does a lot of, like, introspection on her mother and
self
kinda
reflection,
comes to
too.
terms self-reflection and kinda
Yeah.
comes to terms with, like, her mother by the end of the movie,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I really
Yeah.
admire that about Sydney, that she's able to, like, actually take a second and think about what these people are telling her and maybe like, start doubting herself
Right.
because
And she also is thinking, like,
that takes a lot.
she's also has the burden on her of like, did I put an innocent man in jail now? So now
Mhm.
is she responsible for that as well? So again, this poor girl is like has so much shit going on right now.
I know.
It's just like endless. But we do see that Ghostface was in like the woods, like next to the house, like watching them as they were talking in that scene quick, just like hiding out in the woods in the trees.
Yeah.
So then we get, I mean, I keep saying another iconic scene, but every scene in this movie is iconic because we cut to Randy working at the video store
Oh,
and
yeah,
Stu
yeah.
shows up and then they start discussing about how Randy thinks that Billy is the killer. And then Billy's in the video store too, and then Randy's like, "If you
I
were
just
a
love the quick commentary too. It
so
helps with
good."
the overall like
Yeah,
believability and the theming. This video store is packed, and
yeah,
what Stu comments on it, he's like, "Wow, busy night." And he's like, "Yeah, with the curfew and everything, and
yeah.
with the killings, everyone's renting horror movies to
Yeah, he
you
said we
know."
had like a real
It's like that
uptick
stuff
in the
like
horror
that
section.
they
And it's
add to
so and it's
movies
special to me.
really
Oh,
makes it
yeah,
special. Yeah,
right. And I love how he's like, because Billy's at the store too, and he's standing in the horror section. Randy's like, "Now, if you were a prime suspect, would you really be standing in the horror section?"
yeah,
It's so
yeah. Doesn't he say like it's a little like
yeah,
insensitive, tone deaf?
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my god. But I love how we
Poor
find out
Randy. I
obviously that.
always knew that Randy was innocent. I think even like
Oh
when I
yeah.
first saw this
Oh yeah.
movie,
Oh
like
yeah. Because he's
I was
us.
like,
Randy's
please let
I
it
mean,
not
I'm
be
not
Sick
as creepy
Randy.
as Randy, but other than that, because Randy has a crush on Sid, but some of the shit he says is a little like weird. But we find out that Randy has a crush on Sydney, and then he asks Stu, he's like, "Do you think Sid would go out with me?" And Stu does his like Matthew Lillard laugh. He's like, "Aha, no." But Stu
I
rebuttals
think she
his.
would.
No, I don't think
Uh,
Sydney would ever. I think
really?
Sydney and Randy are just friends. I don't think she
She
would.
flirts with him on the phone though. Earlier on, when she thinks it's Randy on the phone, doesn't she say that line?
She's like, "I like what you're
Um,
doing." She said, "Like what you're doing with your voice, Randy. It's sexy."
yeah, like I thought that was a little
No, I
flirtatious, and
think it's a
that kind
friend
of
banter.
okay, yeah.
I mean, you could.
I'm
I mean, I can't tell you how to take that. You could. I mean, you could
yeah.
see it as that. I
I would
don't.
like to
But
think a guy like Randy would have a shot with Sydney, but
I mean, well, I think he would have had
we
more of a
already get
shot of her in
what's
this
that?
movie than how he acts in Scream 2, like with her in
Oh,
the beginning. It's a
wow.
little.
Wow.
But
Yeah. Yeah,
so
true.
but Stu
The
rebuttals
British
to
accent?
yeah. I'm like, oh. But Stu rebuttals his claim that he thinks that Randy thinks it's Billy, and Stu puts it back and says, "I think it's her dad." Like he's like, Where's her pops? Where's Neil Prescott?"
Yeah.
And so why can't they find them? And again, Stu's doing this deliberately because he wants to push this narrative. But
Mhm.
Randy goes right away. He goes, "Because he's probably dead. Police are always off track with this shit. If they watch Prom Night, they would save time. There's a formula to this. A very simple formula. Everybody's a suspect." It's so that line. I mean, that can speak true to every slasher movie. Everybody's a suspect. Every whodunit.
Mhm.
I love his delivery of that scene, and he's like yelling to the point where everyone in the store like turns, and Stu's like, "Yo, keep it down." It's so funny.
Yeah.
And he goes, "I'm
Yeah.
telling you, it's Billy. The dad's a red herring." And then he turns around and Billy grabs him. And then he goes, "How do we know you're not the killer?" And then we get the whole, "You're right. I could be the killer." And then, they go back and forth. I love that scene between them three. And I love how
Yeah,
Stu's like just
Billy's
like,
so intimidating in this
oh
scene,
my
he's so
god, I'm
scary.
intimidated through
Yeah.
him, and it's like
Yeah.
he's creepy. I mean,
Mhm.
you think he's a killer. But so then we get the actual Red Right Hand song, which again is the song of Scream, and we see the shops are getting ready to close up. Everyone's like getting ready for curfew, putting all the signs up. But Dewey takes the girls into town because he needs to stop at the police station, and they want to go shopping for food for the party.
Yeah, I
Um,
also love I talk about, like, little quick things to make it, like, kinda bring the town together. It has Casey's parents in
yeah,
this shot, right? And then, like, they're
yeah,
leaving the store, and it's, like, just showing her parents is kinda
yeah. I
cool.
can't. Yeah, I just think that I love the scene of them all like because the town it makes it seem bigger than just like these central characters. The whole town
Yes,
has the
yeah.
effects of the
Like, they don't
scenario.
just completely write off Casey and her parents, like, just showing them, even just for 2
Was it her
seconds,
parents? I
kinda
didn't even think that it was her parents. Was it?
"Oh, I thought that was
I
her
never thought
parents
it
that back
was.
out of the store." If you're
I don't know.
saying you never picked up on that, then I might
I
be
never
wrong,
picked up on that. I never picked up
but
on that. I
I'll
thought
have
it was
to
just
I okay. I
but I
always thought
never
that
I
was
mean,
her
I don't
parents.
I also don't
I
like
think it might be.
I don't know. I never picked up on that. That's I'm gonna
You
see another
know the
reason.
shot I'm talking about, right?
Yeah,
Like,
I
during the
see when
curfew
people
when
are running
they're
it. Yeah, 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 yeah. I know what you're talking about.
it's a couple in a station wagon. It's the same car, I thought,
Okay,
and it's
I
the
don't
same
know.
people. They're leaving the store and they're going home,
When I have to
and
watch
I
the
thought
movie
that
again.
was, like, a little nod to, like, "Oh, like,
I
that's
don't know.
Casey's
That's a good
parents, like, we're still in
but
a town."
regardless, I love how we see these people like rushing to get home because
If
of
I'm
these
wrong,
killings.
someone call me out after the episode, but
Yeah,
I
I've
always
never
thought
picked
that
up
was
on
them.
that. But
Yeah.
again, I pick up
Wow,
something
if
new
I'm
every time I
right,
watch
then
this movie.
I'm pretty proud of myself.
I don't think it's them, but I don't know. I'm not going to say 100% no.
I'm looking
But
it up when we're done with this.
right. But yeah, Dewey takes the girls into town because he needs to stop at the police station. So they're gonna go shopping for food, and I love how they're already Sydney's like, "Oh, it sure is quiet," and then she's like, "It looks like it's this place looks like it's the town that dreaded sundown. And I don't know if you've seen that movie, but I've seen that movie. And again, another nod to a movie. Love it.
Yeah.
And then Tatum's like, well, hey,
So
Sid.
many nods to, like,
I know.
movies that,
I know.
like Prom Night and Town That Dreaded Sundown, they're not, like, triple
Right. They're
A
not the
titles
like
that are,
big
like,
classics. Right,
the
right.
big ones, and they're
Right,
still
right.
like, it's so cool as a horror fan to, like,
I know.
"Wait, did they just reference The Town
Yep.
That Dreaded Sundown? That's so
I
cool."
know.
Yeah.
So Tatum's like, "Hey Sid, at least like if they make a movie, who do you think's gonna play you?" And then Dewey is such a good dude. He's like, "I see you as a young Meg Ryan," but Sydney's like, "Thanks, Dewey, but with my luck, they'll cast Tori Spelling." And it's so funny because in Scream 2, they cast Tori
They got
Spelling
her.
to
Yeah, I
play
know.
her.
It's so funny.
It's so
Yeah.
meta. But
Instead, I know.
they go to the store and Dewey goes to the police station and in the store they have another conversation, Tatum and Sydney, and then Tatum's like, so what? You have a few intimacy issues as a result of your mom's untimely death, you know? And then we also see that Ghostface is following them in the store. And then we cut to Dewey, who shows up to the station, Sheriff Burke, and he's eating an ice cream cone. I'm like, damn, Dewey's all of us. I just want to eat an ice cream cone and just walk down the street. But I just love how he's talking to his boss like with an ice cream cone.
Yeah,
It's so
because his
funny.
boss has the cigarette and he has the ice
Yep,
cream cone.
it's
It's
so
a
funny.
good little,
They both have their
yeah.
vices.
Yeah.
But we find out this is an important scene because Burke tells Dewey that the calls that were made to Casey and Sydney were listed to Neil Prescott. He
Mhm.
made the calls from a cell phone. And then Dewey's, I mean, people give Dewey a shit, but he's smart. He's like, there's no way the cell phone could have been cloned. And then Burke
Mhm.
kind of like doesn't even acknowledge it. He's like, there's more though. Tomorrow is the anniversary of his wife's death. So they're
It's
like,
way too convenient.
right, they're
I mean,
zoning in on
Dewey's
it could
onto
be him.
something.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then Burke's just like, let's find him first and then make sure he's our man. So that's a big reveal that, the calls are coming from Neil. But again,
Mhm.
Dewey's point, it was couldn't have just been cloned, of
Yeah.
course. But Burke does tell Dewey, I actually like Burke as a sheriff too. He's a good guy. He tells Dewey to stay close to Sydney tonight. Don't let her out of your sight. So then we cut to what we were talking about in the beginning. Cut to night. Everyone's arriving at Stu's house. And talk about an iconic looking house. Just the way that one window is. You can see that house anywhere and be like, oh, that's Stu's house. Like I knew in the marketing for Scream 5 right away. I'm like, oh shit, that's Stu's house. I knew right
Oh,
away.
yeah. Yeah.
What an iconic setting for a horror finale and plenty of set pieces. I was gonna say it's one set piece, but it's plenty of set pieces in the finale. Um, it goes down in horror history as one of the best settings for the last portion of a movie. It's just iconic. Um, so we also see as they're arriving because Dewey's bringing Tatum and Sydney to the party, but we see behind them Gail and Kenny are following because she never knows where a story could pop up. So Gail arrives and Dewey shows up and she tells him, she's like, you never know when a story might break. And then Dewey says he's going to go in to check on the party. And Gail asks to come join him, but she hides a camera under her coat because she wants to bring a camera inside to see what's going on again. Then we cut to the inside, and I love this. Randy brought over videotapes from the store so they could watch horror movies all night. And Sydney's like, The Fog, Terror Train, Prom Night. How come Jamie Lee Curtis is in all these movies? And Randy goes, she's the Scream Queen. And damn right she is. Damn right she
Yeah.
is. I love the commentary on that right away. But
Yeah.
Gail and Dewey, they walk in the house, and Dewey's so giddy that he has her with him. I love it. He's like can't
I
stop
know.
smiling. It's so funny. And
Yeah.
Tatum's fucking pissed. She goes to Dewey. She's like, leave and take your sidekick with you now. But before they leave, Gail puts the camera right on the TV stand, right above the TV. So as she's doing that, Cindy asks Dewey if they found her father. He's like, no, not yet. We're still checking. But obviously, Dewey's not going to tell her that her dad's a suspect. But so then they leave after they put the camera down, and then we get most iconic death scene of the movie after Casey Becker's. We get the Tatum garage scene. She goes to get more beer. Oh, this scene is just a fucking. Oh, it's so damn good.
Yeah. It's
So
very
she.
chilly garage
Oh yeah, I
too.
was gonna
Yeah.
say it's super chilly tonight.
Yeah, it's super 90s with the, no bra. Yeah.
Love it. All of the
It's
above. A plus, A plus, A plus. Rose McGowan, A plus.
it's funny because like, they're there the whole movie, and then in this movie, it's like, "Whoa!"
Oh yeah, oh
They're
yeah.
really like, yeah. So fucking iconic.
So yeah, there's 3 stars of this scene. Tatum and her two
Yeah.
assets.
Yeah. I know.
So, Rose McGowan, I love you. You're so good in this movie.
Yeah.
So she goes to get the beers from the fridge, and the actual door leading to the house closes behind her. And she tries to go open it, but it's locked. So then she opens like the car garage door, and then as she goes to like go underneath it, it starts closing. She turns around and she sees Ghostface is there. And again, just like Sydney, she assumes that it's Randy. She's like, "Is that you, Randy?" And he just
Yeah.
shakes his head. He's like, "Nope." And then I love her like banter. I'm like, damn, I need a girl the way she talks to him. She's like, "You want to play psycho killer?" And he's like, "Yes." She's like, "Can I play the helpless victim?" And he's like, "Yes." She's like, and I love her line. She's like, "Oh no, Mr. Ghostface, please don't kill me. I want to be in the sequel." Such an iconic line. But this is also the first name drop we get of actual Ghostface. No one says the term Ghostface until Tatum in the garage.
Yes, I did notice that. I watched this movie for the probably I mean, I've seen this
God
movie
knows how
probably
many
50
times. Yeah.
times, but I watched it right before we recorded this, and, that was one of the things I picked up.
So
That
she
is the first
introduced us
time.
to the name Ghostface
Okay.
because if you see
I wanted to
earlier
confirm that with you.
when Dewey's talking to Burke in the station earlier, the actual like costume package that he found outside Sydney's
Yeah.
house, it says Father Death. It doesn't say
Oh, okay.
Ghostface.
Yeah.
So Tatum comes up with the "Please don't kill me, Mr. Ghostface. I want to be in the sequel." And thank you for that because now we all refer to him as Ghostface.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So great. So after she says that, she's like, "Cut it, Casper. It's a wrap because his mask is white." Love. She's got the jokes. She's got the jokes. But as she's trying to get back through the door, Ghostface takes her arm and he slices her. But Tatum, I will say, she puts up a damn good fight. She kicks his
Mm.
fucking ass. She
Oh, yeah.
hits him with the freezer door. She like has expert aim with those beer bottles. She fucking knocks him out, hits him in the face, hits him in the crotch. Like she's killing it. But her mistake is that instead of, I guess she's in the heat of the moment, so instead of trying to hit the button to open the garage door again, I mean, I get it. She's getting attacked. She goes through the doggy cat door to try to get through the garage, and I mean, it's a bad move.
Ambitious.
It's
Yeah.
a bad move.
She's a voluptuous woman, and
Yeah.
that's a small
So
doggy
she gets
door.
stuck in the door, obviously, and
Yeah.
when you're watching it for the first time, you think, okay, Ghostface is gonna come up behind her and start stabbing her, but nope, 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 nope. Ghostface goes and he opens the car garage door, and she's stuck, and she gets her head crushed and smashed in with the door when it
Yeah.
starts rising up. I'm like, damn. And then we get her body's just hanging there for the rest of the movie.
Uh
Iconic, iconic.
this is my favorite Ghostface moment because he's even surprised that that worked. You could
Yeah,
tell,
yeah.
and I call this his Darth Vader moment because the, the I know you're not a big Star Wars guy, but like especially in the original trilogy, Darth Vader has a way of conveying emotion through a mask, and I think that's why he's my favorite villain of all time. But in this moment, Ghostface
He's
does like a
admiring. He's
little
like,
look
yep,
and
yep.
he's like, "Holy shit, that worked! Wow, that's crazy!" And
What I
you could feel
love,
that through the screen. It's so
I
funny. I
agree.
love it.
And I love how
Yeah,
demented whoever is behind. I mean, we know who's behind the mask, but they literally like admire it and they just go right back into the party right away. It's like
yeah,
you have to
oh
be like
yeah.
some special kind of fucked up to just walk away
I love
from
how he
that
just
right
goes
away.
back into the
Yep,
house like through
yeah,
the door.
right.
Which how did
And
he
that's the
unlock
one
it?
thing. Well, it could have been Stu. He could have had a key in his pocket or whatever because it's his house.
Yeah,
But
I guess
I think it was. Well,
I
it could
don't.
have been Billy. It could have been either of them. Either of them could have had the key. I think it might have been Billy because he didn't arrive at the party yet technically, and Stu was
Yeah,
inside entertaining the guests. But I don't know. We can talk about that a
yeah.
whole nother day because we can argue on who killed
They
who.
do a good job of kind
Yeah,
of masking. It could be yeah.
right. But so after that, which again, that's an all timer like death scene in my opinion in horror, especially in the Scream
Mhm.
franchise. Um, so after that, a lot of the party they start to leave because there's a curfew, and Sydney cannot find Tatum for obvious reasons. But Billy pops up and shows up right in front of Stu and Sydney, and Stu's like, "Oh, maybe you guys want to talk? You can go up to my parents' room. You can talk, whatever." Again, Matthew Lillard, comedy gold, comedy fucking gold in this movie.
Yeah, I know.
But so they go upstairs, and then Gail goes back to the van, and Kenny tells her that the camera that she set up has a 30-second delay, which again will come into play later. but the way that Wes just like planted that seed that this camera has a 30-second delay, brilliant, 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 because it's so suspenseful when it comes back into play. But anyway, so we cut back to Billy and Sid, and Billy is doing his like typical apologizing for being selfish, and then and poor Sydney, like she thinks like he like tormented her into apologizing to him for burdening him with her PTSD. I'm like, ugh, this makes me so mad. But
I know.
and then she says that she's scared that she's gonna turn into her mom and be just like her. And then Dewey's like, it's just like Jodie Foster in Silence of the Lambs when she's having flashbacks of her dead father. Again, another movie job. But Sydney's like, no, this is life. This isn't a movie. And Billy's like, sure it is, Sid. It's all just one great big movie. And I kind of agree with Billy. I feel like our lives are one big great movie. But I love that interaction. I love that dialogue right there. But they start hooking up, and then Sydney's like, oh, why can't I just be in why can't I be a Meg Ryan movie or even a good porno? And he's like, oh shit, I'm gonna get laid right now. So, and then he's like, you sure? And then, Sydney gives it up and they start having sex. So then we
Yeah.
cut back to the teens and they're watching Dum 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 Halloween 1978. Again, if this movie isn't already an all-timer for me, the fact that they literally incorporate the movie Halloween like literally within this movie, it's right then and there. I'm like, holy shit, this movie's fucking perfect, man.
Yeah.
And I love how throughout the rest of the movie, there's even hints of John Carpenter's score playing because they just let it play in the movie. I'm like, oh my god,
Yeah.
this is just beautiful. Mwah, mwah. Oh, chef's kiss that they did this in the
I know.
finale of the
Yeah.
movie. It's so good. But we get Stu. He's like, they're watching the movie, and Stu's like, I want to see breasts. When do we see Jamie Lee's breasts? And I love how Randy, he's such a geek like me. He's like, not until Trading Places in '83. Jamie Lee Curtis, she was always the virgin in horror movies. She never showed her tits until she went legit.
Yeah.
He's like,
I
that's
love
why
that line
she's
too.
always outsmarted the killers in the big chasing at the end of these movies. Only virgins can do that. And then we get the whole, don't you know the rules? And everyone's like, what the fuck? He's like, you don't know the rules? He's so pissed off. He's like, there are certain rules one must abide by in order to successfully survive a horror movie. Then we get number one, you can never have sex. Sex equals death. And they're like, what? They're all pissed. And then we get number two, you can never drink or do drugs. And I love how after he says that, they all cheers and they take like a chug of their drink. It's so funny. And then he goes, number three, never under any circumstance say you'll be right back because you won't be back. And then this is fucking beautiful. Stu goes, hey, I'm gonna get a beer. You want one? And Randy goes, yeah, sure. He's like, I'll be right back. Oh, so good. And then
Yeah.
Randy's like, okay, sure. I'll see you in the kitchen with the knife.
Yeah.
It's so fucking perfect. Matthew Lillard should have won an award for his delivery in this movie alone. So good.
I know.
But so then again, so now we know our rules. And again, those are the rules that and if you watch any 80s slasher movie, anyone who does any of those three things, they're dead. They're dead. You can't have sex,
Yep.
can't drink or do drugs, and you can't just go off and say I'll be back because you won't be back.
Can't split up. Never
Is
split up.
that exactly? And that Scream directly ties into the name of our podcast. Never split up.
Hmm.
Don't say you'll be back. Okay. Beautiful scene. I mean, that's the reason why I think Randy has so many a huge fan base is because of that
Oh
scene alone.
yeah.
And I
Oh
mean,
yeah. That scene
for me alone, I
solidified.
love
Yeah.
him. It's just an
Uh,
all-timer scene.
I personally think they fucked up by killing him in the sequel. I mean,
When I first saw the sequel, I was devastated, like
yeah.
devastated. But now when going back, I'm like, that was ballsy of them to do that. Because people
Oh yeah. No, it was ballsy, but
complain to this day that like, okay, none of our main characters in Scream have gotten killed off, and I think that's the charm of it. But they did it in Scream 2, and there was such a big backlash after they did it.
yeah. Yeah.
But
I'm always disappointed, especially because we have a Scream 3 and a Scream 4.
mhm,
They kind of brought it up back in Scream 5 with his niece and nephew, but
right, he's
we're
still
we're
part of the
missing that
legacy,
element.
and
We have
it's funny,
we have it replicated like in Scream, especially in Scream 4. We have like the movie bros, but
right?
it's
Well,
just not the
no one will
same.
compare to
Yeah.
Randy. No, even we have Scream
Yeah.
5. Mindy's the new Randy, but she's really not. I mean, she's not. I love
Yeah,
Mindy,
no,
but
no,
there's no
I know.
Randy,
That's what I'm saying. They tried to bring it back,
right?
like, and I like the connection that
Oh
Mindy
yeah,
has, and I
because you
do like,
can't.
yeah,
I
but
love how they did the connection because Randy is a huge part of the legacy, even though he makes it through the first two movies and half of the half of the
Mhm.
second movie only. But
Yeah.
it's funny because outside of the trio, I mean, before not taking into consideration Scream 6, he's the only character that has been a repeat in a sequel other than Sidney, Dewey, or Gale. No one else from the sequels has been in the following movie until Scream 6,
Oh,
not including Scream
really?
6. Yeah.
No, well, Judy. Judy was in Scream
Judy
5.
in Scream 5, but I'm talking about like from the I mean, I guess Judy in Scream
I got
5.
you. I
I
got
kind
you
of talked
there.
about the original trilogy as its
Yeah.
own saga, you know what I
Oh,
mean?
okay. No. You
But
mean for the trilogy. Yeah, true.
yeah,
Yeah.
because I mean, yeah, but I think it's Randy is a special character. Randy's a
Cotton
very
Weary,
special
too.
character. Yeah, but the first movie he's not like an actual he's a character, but he's on a
But he's
TV.
in 2 and 3, right?
Yeah, yeah, he's in 2
He's
and 3. He's in
he's
like
in 2, right?
he's
Yeah.
well, he's in 2 is his biggest role. 3 is he's in the
I
opening scene.
Oh, duh. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
was getting the 2 confused for a
Yeah,
second.
no.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no,
So
2 was
he's,
like the Cotton
yeah,
Weary, like, really movie, but in this movie, he's
yeah,
literally, like, on screen for 2 seconds, like, on the
yeah,
TV.
yeah.
But, yeah, so Randy's very special to the franchise still. Um, but we cut back to Gail and Kenny watching in the van, and, she's like, "This is boring, all this movie talk," but Dewey shows up, and he says that the sheriff radioed him that someone reported a car in the woods, an abandoned car, and then he goes, "Care to check it out with me?" And then Gail tells Kenny that she'll be right back, and she goes with Dewey. And even Dewey, they're kind of like setting him up as a red herring too right now. Like they're setting a lot of people up as red herrings. But Dewey tells her that I thought we would walk instead of drive. It's a nice night out tonight, and I have a flashlight. He does that like creepy thing in his face with the flashlight,
Yeah.
and he's like, "You aren't scared, are you?" She's like, "No," but I'm like, "Oh shit, should she be scared?" I never thought that Dewey
Yeah.
would be a killer,
I
but
neither did I. I thought he
it's a
was
red
just wanting
herring.
to get
That is a
alone
red
time
herring.
with
That
her.
is a red herring,
Yeah,
though. Yeah, no,
I
he
guess.
100% did. He wanted to have a nice romantic
Well,
walk with
either
Gail.
way, it's
Come on.
stupid. They should have drove. Yeah. I mean,
No, he wants to enjoy the moonlight with Gail.
but there's a killer on the loose. There's a
It's so
time and
funny.
place, Dewey. Come on.
He has to shoot a shot before he gets killed off, right? But
Yeah.
so more teens leave the
They got to
party
get run off the
after that.
road so
Yeah,
they can
more teens
kiss.
leave the
Yeah.
party, and then I love how and then the rest of them are still watching the movie, and Randy's like, "Okay, here comes the obligatory tit shot," and we see Linda from Halloween flashing herself,
Mhm.
and they intercut that with Sydney and Billy having sex. So sex scene. Hold on.
Mm.
Um, and then we also go back to them. So after the sex scene, we go back to Randy, and I love how the Halloween music is playing. It's the scene when Lori is contemplating going across the street to check on her friends, and Randy gets a call, and he finds out that Principal Henry was found dead, and that he was gutted and hung to a goalpost on the football field. And these teens are like fucking no sympathy at all. They're drunk assholes. They're like, all right, what are we waiting for? Let's go there before they prime down. I'm like, holy shit, insensitive assholes. So the rest of the teens leave. So it's literally just our main cast left. And Randy's like, because this is such a me line. Randy yells to him, he's like, "Where are you guys going? We're just getting to the good part of the movie." I'm like, I'm with Randy. I would wait to finish the movie and then go see Principal because I mean, this is an iconic movie. We're talking about Halloween that we're getting to the good part. But so Gail and Dewey they're walking up the street, and then we find out that Dwight is his real name.
I,
Such funny banter.
yeah.
And then he's like, "Oh yeah, no one takes me seriously because of the name Dewey." She's like, "What about Gail's weather? What about Gail Weather? That sound like a meteorologist." She really does.
Mhm.
That really does sound like a meteorologist name. But we get the shot of the teens. They're like hyping up and driving quick to get to Principal Henry, and they literally like run them off the road. Gail and Dewey. Thank God they didn't hit them. But so Gail and Dewey, they like fall down, and of course Dewey lands on top of Gail, and they have their kiss. And then I love how they Dewey stops and he's like, "I'm sorry, I'm on duty."
I know. And then the look she gives him and like the little
Yep,
laugh she does, she's like, "You're
yep,
such a dweeb,"
yep.
without
And,
saying it.
and I
Yeah.
love how she's like, "Oh, is that what you're looking for?" Because Gail obviously sees something, and Dewey's like, "Oh, my whole life." And then Gail's like,
I know.
"No, that," and she turns his head, and it's Neil Prescott's car. And then Dewey's like, "Holy fucking shit, Neil Prescott's here. We got to get back to the party." So that's when it would have helped out if they drove because it takes them a little bit to get back to the party.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Um,
definitely.
So then we cut back to Sydney and Billy after they were finished up having sex, and then Sydney is just like asks him, she's like, "Who did you call as your one phone call in jail?" And then Billy is like, "I called my dad." And then she's like, "No, Sheriff Burke did." And then he's like, "Yeah, well, when I called, he didn't answer." And then Sydney's like, "Oh, huh." And then he's like, "What?" And then she's like, "Well, I think it would have been clever if you were the killer to throw me off by using your one phone call to call me." And then he's pretty much like, "You don't still think it was me, do you?" She's like, "No, no." And then he goes up to her and he's like so fucking creepy and evil. He's like, "What do I have to do to prove to you that I'm not a killer?" And then she's like, "What?" And then Ghostface appears behind Billy and stabs him and supposedly kills him. And then we get the Sydney chasing up the stairs, and she locks herself in a room.
What's your interpretation on that scene where Sydney reacts to Billy?
I don't.
Because
A
she
lot of people think that
says
she's realizing that he's a killer. I don't think that at all. I think she's just kind of like in
really?
shock, like, "Oh my god, like Billy, like really?" I don't think she realized right then and there that he's could be the killer.
It almost seemed like though she saw something in Billy because she goes, "Oh my god," but she doesn't see Ghostface until
She
she does
sees,
the second "Oh my god"
yeah, yeah, yeah,
in
yeah,
the
yeah. No,
background.
yeah, right, right,
Like,
right.
you
I
could
agree.
tell she's still looking, and then she looks up
Right.
and says,
She
"Oh my
looks. She
god."
says, "Oh my god,"
So,
and then she looks up again. "Oh my god," like
yeah,
Ghostface.
so, like, I wonder why she said, "Oh my god."
I
It's
think
just
it's
it's a little curious to me
I think she's
because there
because
was
the way
nothing
he's
he
delivering it,
said.
but the way he's saying it to her, like he's literally like going up there and is like, "You don't still think I'm a killer? What do I have to do to prove to you?" I
Yeah,
don't know.
oh, it's
She's kind of like,
super
"Oh
creepy,
my
I know.
god." She's like, "Oh my god," like that. Like
It
the fuck.
almost makes me think maybe she's putting the pieces together because in the back of her mind, she's thinking about her mother's murder the whole
Right.
time. So
Well, I think
maybe
well, she
she
also
saw
just said
something
that
in
she's like
Billy.
she literally was smart enough to say, "What if you were trying to throw me off by using your one phone call to call me later that night? So you think that I think you're innocent because you're in jail?"
Mhm.
I mean, so
Yeah.
I think again, I don't think she ever doesn't have the sense of doubt that Billy could be the killer, but I think in that moment she's
No.
like, "Oh my god, like
Well, when she has
what are
sex with
we?"
him, I mean, if I would hope that she
Well,
doesn't, you know,
but
not have
he's
doubt about him.
it's almost like he's brain like he like made her feel guilty. He like guilt set like he made her feel guilty to have sex. Like he like for I almost think it's like forcing her to do it without forcing her. That's how I took take that scene because the way he's like,
Oh, 100%
yeah,
she felt pressured for
yeah,
sure,
yeah.
but, like, I
No, I
would
know what you're saying. Like, I
like
don't
to
think in that
think that
moment. That's what I'm saying. I don't
yeah,
think that when she says, "Oh my god," I don't even think right then and there she thinks he's the killer. I think she's just kind of like, "Oh my god," like the way you're like talking to me about this is like fucked up. That's
okay.
how I take it. I don't think
Yeah,
she's like putting it together like right then and there he's the killer. But then obviously he gets stabbed, so like even if that was a thought in her head, it goes right out the window
like, yeah,
because
it goes
he's
away.
killed. And then, like I said, she's chased through the upstairs and she locks herself in the room. And then she does, I mean, she's doing everything a final girl should do. She escapes through the window and then she's yelling for help as she's hanging onto the window. Then Ghostface appears and, you know, she falls or pushes her. You know, she kind of has no other option besides to fall. But thankfully, she falls onto like the covered boat outside in the driveway. But then, when she falls off the boat, she looks up and finally somebody sees Tatum's body hanging from the garage. And she's like, has that
Mm.
like disgusted, horrified look and she runs away.
Yeah,
And then we
nobody
cut back
was
to, yeah,
really
no.
like,
Well, they're
including
drunk.
Stu, nobody
They were
was
drunk.
looking for Tatum the entire time. It was
No,
so
no,
funny.
no,
Yeah.
no, not at all. But,
Not at all.
yeah, poor Tatum, man.
I
But we
know.
cut back to Randy and I love this. This is, the movie does not get more meta than this scene because Randy's the only one left watching the movie. And in this moment, he's literally talking to Jamie Lee Curtis, Laurie Strode, but his name in real life is Jamie Kennedy. So he's talking to the movie and he's telling Jamie Lee Curtis, he says, "Jamie, watch out. Jamie, you know he's around. There he is. Jamie, Jamie, look behind you. Turn around behind you." And as he's saying that, Ghostface is behind him. So he's talking to himself in that moment. It's so
Mhm.
fucking clever. It's
Yeah, I
so
know.
good. So so good. So Sydney reaches the van and Kenny's in the van. And then we see Randy doing that, you know, saying, "Jamie, look out, Randy, look behind you, look behind you," because there's a 30-second delay. So Kenny goes to open the van to go like help Randy, but we see that the front door is already open, and then he realizes, "Oh shit, there's a 30-second delay." So he turns back around and Ghostface just slashes his throat. Oh, that use of that 30-second delay couldn't have been more perfect. Um, great scene, great sequence right there between the Randy scene and this. So good. So Sydney goes to close the van door, but Ghostface gets a stab and he stabs her in the shoulder. So she starts to climb out through the bottom of the van and run away. But Gail and Dewey, they show up at the house, and he tells her, do you have a phone in your van? Go call the sheriff. So he goes into the house and he thinks he's searching for Neil because he's literally yelling. He's like, Neil Prescott.
Yeah.
Um, and I love how as he's searching the house, Jamie Lee Curtis, she's like screaming in the movie. Oh, it just adds a little bit to me. So Gail, she runs to the van and she's yelling for Kenny, and she sees blood dripping from her van. So she locks herself in the van and she goes to call for help, but Randy shows up outside the window, and I mean rightfully so. Gail's like startled, so she fucking knocks him out with the phone. I wouldn't trust anyone either at this point, so I don't think she did anything wrong by doing that. Um so then she tries to drive off and she sees that there's something on her windshield, so she turns on the wipers and it's blood fucking everywhere. And then when she goes to drive away, Kenny like falls on the windshield. I love She's horrified, but and she screams. But I love how she's like, "Oh God, Kenny, I'm sorry, but get off my
Yeah.
fucking windshield."
I know.
Fucking Courtney Cox is she's like her comedic. She's being serious, but it's also funny in the same moment. Like, damn, it's so good.
Yeah.
So she starts driving off, and then she's obviously very like in a hurry and startled. And Sydney's in the middle of the road. She's like waving her down, but Gail can't see her enough time between the blood on the windshield and her panic. So she drives to get out of Sydney's way, but she ends up crashing in the woods and hitting a tree. So Sydney runs back to the house and she's yelling for Dewey. Dewey, where are you? And I love how even in this first movie, she's already yelling for Dewey's help because we see that she does that in Scream 2 and Scream 3. She really like looks up to Dewey to protect her. I love it. I love it. Love it so much. So then Dewey appears at the front entrance of the house and he's walking out, but he's walking slow. But we end up seeing that there's a knife in his back, so he was stabbed. And then we
Yeah.
get
Poor
the
Dewey.
very suspenseful Ghostface and Sydney, the cop car scene when Sydney locks herself in the car and she calls for help on the walkie-talkie or whatever. Um, and then we see that she can't start the car because there's no keys in the car because obviously Ghostface has them because he just stabbed Dewey. And I love how he knocks on the window. He like taunts her with the keys. Oh, so fucked up. So then he like goes under the car and he's like keeps unlocking like each door and she has to keep locking it. So when she's doing that, he ends up coming in through the trunk and attacking her, but she's Sydney, so she gets away, of course. Um, but Ghostface, when she looks back, he disappears. He's not there. And then Randy and Stu show up outside, and then Sydney takes Stewie's gun and points it at both of them because they're both pretty much blaming each other. This is the really like blame game right now. Stu's saying it was Randy, Randy's saying it was Stu, blah blah blah. And I
Hmm.
love how Sydney is just like fuck you both, and she locks them both outside. I would do the same
Yeah.
exact thing, man. I would do the same exact
I
thing.
know. It's so
She's like,
funny.
go away. She's literally like,
Do you
fuck you
know
both.
if just to backtrack real quick, do you know if there was a deleted scene at all? Because I thought it was interesting after I think it's after the initial chase scene with Sydney, she winds up outside. Or it might have been right after this cop car scene, but she goes towards the barn across the street, that old rundown barn. And
No,
I
that
always
was
assume that there's gonna be a sequence there where she gets stalked in the barn, but that never happens and she just
no,
appears again.
no. I
So
think
there was never any plans.
she's running through the when she's running through that area, and then she ends up on the road. That's when Gale almost hits her. But I don't, before
Yeah.
that, there was no there was no. I don't think there was no plans for another chase scene because she
Okay.
just got chased through
I
the house.
Yeah, it would've been cool if they because that's a creepy old barn, you know what
No,
I'm
it
talking about,
is.
right
Yeah,
across
yeah, I
the
know what you're
street?
talking about. Yeah.
And it's like,
Well,
"Why
she's
is
already
that
running
there if we're
through a
not gonna use
field.
it?"
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That would've been a cool, like, stalking scene, you
No, it
know?
would have for
Because
sure.
we
But I
really
think at
didn't we
that
don't
point,
get a lot of that in these movies, and I get it, like, that's
no, we get
these movies
stalking
are
in
more
Scream 2 especially.
well, yeah, but especially this movie, it's more about the chase scenes. I mean,
Yeah,
when I think of scenes, Scream 2, I think about, like, the chase scene with Gale
with Gale.
Weathers more
Oh
than,
my
like,
god, that's
stalking,
an all timer.
but,
That's a stalking chase
yeah,
scene. Yeah.
yeah, but it would've been cool if, they
I
used
think at
that
this
barn. I
point,
always
like
think
we
of that every
had
time
a
I
bunch
see
of
it.
chase scenes, and like they kind of need to get to the reveal of it all because this movie is long
Mhm.
for a horror movie. I think it's almost 2 hours already, and horror movies aren't
Yeah,
usually that long. Um,
yeah,
but I know what you're talking about. The barn. I know
like
what
a
you're talking
cool
about.
stalking
Yeah,
scene, that would've been cool. Yeah,
yeah. Um,
I always think about that.
Yeah, so after Sydney locks Randy and Stu outside, Billy comes crawling out and falls down the stairs. Great performance, Billy. Um, and he says, she's like, "Oh my god, you okay? You're alive." She's going to check on him, obviously, because he was stabbed. And then he says, "Give me the gun." And she gives him the gun. He takes the gun really from her. She doesn't have much option. And he opens the door, and Randy's still there. So he lets Randy inside, and then Randy's like, "Stu's flipped out. He's gone mad." And then, oh, Billy, he goes, "We all go a little mad sometimes." Again, psycho. And he shoots
Yeah.
Randy. And then he's just like, Anthony Perkins, psycho. And then I love how he touches his bloody shirt and he's like, corn syrup, same stuff they use for pig's blood and Carrie. Again, two movie drops right there in his reveal. So, dum dum dum, Billy is one of the killers. He faked, that was a whole fake out with the stabbing. And then Sydney goes to run to the kitchen, but Stu shows up and she runs into him. And then Stu takes out the voice changer and he goes, "Surprise, Sydney." "What's the matter, Sydney? You look like you've seen a ghost." So the killers are Billy and Stu. And then we
Yep.
get the iconic kitchen scene, which is the whole reveal of it all, and pretty much the whole finale is the kitchen. It's so fucking
Oh
good.
yeah.
And then so she's asking, she's like, "Why? Like, why are you doing this?" And then Billy says, "It's all part of the game. We ask a question, you get it wrong." And then yeah, this is Stu. He's like, "We ask a question, you get it wrong, Booga, you die." And then Billy's like, "You get it right, you die." And Sydney's like, "What the fuck? You're crazy, both of you. You'll never get away with this." And then I love how Stu's like, "We prefer the term psychotic."
Yeah.
But Billy goes, "Tell that to Cotton. It was easy to frame him." So now we know. Oh, Sydney really gets fucking upset because Billy's the one who killed their mother. And I love how Stu's like, "Yeah, watch a few movies, take a few notes. It was fun."
Yeah.
So fucking iconic in this finale.
Yeah. He
And
comments
then,
how easy it was too.
yep, yep.
Yeah.
Sydney's just so upset. She's like, "Why did she doesn't even care at this point that they're the killers or she's caught." She's like, "Why did you kill my mother?" And then Billy's like, "Look, Stu, I think she wants a motive." And then he's like, "They're scarier when there's no motive." Did Norman Bates have a motive? Nope. Did they ever decide why Hannibal Lecter liked to eat people? Don't think so.
But
But
then there is a motive.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's like, "We did your mom a
For
favor. She's a
them.
slutbag
Yeah.
whore who flashed her shit all over town like she was Sharon Stone or something." And then Stu's like, "Let's face it, Shid, your mother was no Sharon Stone." It's so fucking funny. Because, of course, that was around the time that Basic Instinct was super popular. But
Yeah.
then Billy's like, "You want a motive? How's this for a motive? Your mother was fucking my father. And that's what caused my mom to leave town." I'm like, "Shit, so you fucking killed her?" Um, Damn. So that's why Sydney's mom was killed off. Well, we find out more in Scream 3, but we're not there yet. But I love how Stu's like, "Well, then now you had sex with a psychopath, and now you're not a virgin no longer, so now you gotta die. Those are the rules."
Yeah.
uh,
I
and
love Matthew Lillard in
oh
this
my god,
entire
he just
scene.
puts
It's
on a
so funny.
fucking show, man. And like every
They just
single
let
line
him
is
go
iconic. Oh my god.
crazy.
And
I
he
know.
ad libs a few lines. Like it wasn't all scripted. But
Yeah.
Billy's like, "How do you think this is gonna end?" And then Stu's like, "Oh, we got a surprise for you. It's a Scream baby." And then he goes, does this whole "I'll be right back." But Billy goes, "It's after midnight. It's your mom's anniversary. You'll die the same day that she did a year later." I'm like, this is fucked up. But Stu
Mhm.
brings back Sydney's dad, Neil Prescott, tied up, and then they reveal that their plan was to obviously frame him. And they're gonna say, his plan was he snapped, killing everyone on the anniversary of his wife's death, except for us two, because we have to have a couple survivors. And then he kills himself after killing Sydney. So that was their whole elaborate plan. So then after that, we get the Billy and Stu stabbing scene, which is fucking gnarly. So they have to make it look like they were attacked. So Billy stabs Stu first, and then Stu gets like upset with the stab, and he stabs Billy, but he like stabs him in the area he shouldn't have. And then Billy asks for the knife back, and he takes it and he goes, "You see, Sid, everybody dies but us." And then Stu goes, "We get to carry on and plan the sequel. Let's face it, baby. These days, you gotta have a sequel." And Sidney's like, "You sick fucks, you've seen one too many movies." And then we get the iconic Billy lines like, "No, Sid, don't blame the movies. Movies don't create psychos. Movies make psychos more creative." Fucking love that line. That's also a commentary on like Wes calling out like how people blame movies for violence because no, they're just movies. They're just movies. I hate that argument. Video games and violence don't create killers. Sorry, no. And Wes had to
Yeah.
deal with that for his whole career because he always made like Last House on the Left, Nightmare on Elm Street. He made these like gritty horror movies, so he was always called out for violence in his movies. So I love that he included that line in this movie. So good. But as Billy's saying that, he ends up stabbing Stu like way too many times. And Stu's like, "Stop it, Billy, would you? I can't take it anymore. I'm feeling woozy here." Fucking Stu, man. I die every time I watch this finale. Um, so Billy tells Stu to, get the gun. I'll untie Pops. And then Stu goes to get the gun. He's like, "Oh fuck, where the fuck is it?" And then we get Gail Weathers. She's like, "Right here, asshole." And then hello, Stu's like, Billy's like, "I thought you checked on her. I thought you said she was dead." And Stu's like, "She looked dead, man. She still does."
Yeah.
So Gail, she pretty much has the gun. She's like, "I got an ending for you." The reporter left for dead in the news van stumbles upon you two dipshits, finds the gun, spoils your plan, and saves the day. And then Sydney's like, "I like that ending." And I love, if you go back, Gail calls them dipshits. And I don't know if anyone has paid attention to Scream 6 trailer, but I love how they give her the line in Scream 6 in the trailer. She's like, "You're like the 10th guy to try this shit. It never works out for the dipshit in the mask." So they bring the whole dipshit line full circle in
Yeah.
Scream 6. Fucking
Yeah, that's cool.
beautiful. Beautiful.
Yeah.
So Sydney's like, "I like that ending." And then Billy goes up to Gil. He goes, "I know something you don't." And he knocks her out. And he's like, "It works better when the safety isn't on." So good try, Gail, but didn't work out.
I know,
So
I
yeah,
always get mad
yeah,
because that's such
I
a
know.
badass moment, and then it
I
just,
know,
like,
she's
gets
so
taunted.
badass. But,
Yeah.
so Billy turns the safety off. He goes, "Works better without the safety on." He does this creepy, like, neck crack. It's so creepy. And then he goes, "This is Gail Weathers signing off." And he's about to shoot her, but Stu's like, "Oh shit." And we find out Sydney's gone. So in that moment, Sydney was able to leave the kitchen. And then Sydney
With her
really
dad.
becomes a final girl in this moment, like a badass motherfucker, because the phone rings. And then I love how Stu's like, "Should I let the machine get it?" It's so fucking funny.
Yeah.
But Billy answers, and it's the Ghostface voice, like, "Are you alone in the house?" And then Billy's like, "Bitch, where the fuck are you?" He's pissed. And then Sydney's like, "We're gonna play a little game. It's called Guess Who Just Called the Police and Reported Your Sorry Motherfucking Ass." So good. And then Billy's like to Stu's like, "Get up and find her, you dipshit." And Stu's like, "I can't, man. I think I'm dying over here."
I know.
So Billy gives Stu the phone, and then I love how Stu's just like, "Hello." And Sydney's like, "Oh, Stu, what's your motive?" Billy's got one. "What's yours?" And then Stu's just like, "Pure pressure. I'm far too sensitive."
Yeah.
It's so funny. But Billy comes back and grabs a phone and he goes, "I'm going to rip you up, you bitch, just like your mother." And then Sydney, she doesn't even back down from that. She goes, "You got to find me first, you pansy ass mama's boy." And then Billy throws the phone on Stu out of frustration. And Stu goes, "Fucking hit me with the phone, dick." That line was ad libbed by Matthew Lillard. So fucking funny when he says that.
Yeah.
But he picks up the phone, Stu, and he goes, "Did you really call the police?" And she goes, "You bet your sorry ass I did." He goes, "My mom and dad are gonna be so mad at me." That's my favorite Stu line of the whole movie. "My mom and dad are gonna be so mad at me." It's so good.
Yeah.
So then we cut to
Because
Billy.
it
He's
puts it
yeah,
into perspective that they're
eh,
still just, like, little high school
yeah,
kids,
and
yeah,
he is.
and they
He's
still
he's
get
fucking
grounded,
he's
and
a fucking idiot.
not that I'm gonna get arrested, it's like, "Oh, I don't wanna disappoint my parents." Yeah.
So funny. "My mom and dad are gonna be so mad at me." So good. So Billy's like looking for Sid throughout the house, and I love how he's watching Halloween the movie, and it's the scene when Michael's attacking Laurie in the closet. So he goes to look in the closet. So he opens the closet, and Sydney attacks him with the point of an umbrella, and she stabs him in the shoulder and kind of the chest area. And actually, when they were filming that scene, Nev Campbell, he had like a padding on, but she missed the padding and she hit him like right in the heart. And I think he like recently had heart surgery too, so that was like fucking oh shit moment. But yeah, so
Damn.
she stabbed him in the chest with that, and then he collapses, and then Stu comes out and he
Did
attacks
they
her.
use that take?
Yeah, they did because he's like in pain.
Oh,
He's
wow.
actually in pain reacting to that.
Okay.
Pretty good. So that's a
I'll have to
realistic. If you rewatch it,
look
it's
at
like
that
an
next time.
honest reaction. He's like, "Holy shit!" He's like, "Ow!" But
Yeah.
so then Stu comes out and attacks her, and then they have a little fight. And then Stu's like, she like bites his hand, and she's like fucking fighting him off. And she's like, "I always had a thing for you, Sid." And then I love how once she gets him off, she's like, "In your dreams." and she smashes the TV. This is a tube TV, people. It's not a flat screen. It's a big ass tube TV. It probably weighs, I don't even know how much it weighs. He was also stabbed a bunch of times. So she throws the TV on his head and electrocutes him. And Stu dies. He dies, people. He's dead.
I'm not so
He's
sure.
dead. He's dead.
Crazier things have happened in
No,
horror
he's
movies.
dead. He's fucking dead, man. That TV is like
I don't know how
60
you could say
pounds.
that.
He's what? He's dead. We'll
I
get.
don't know.
He's dead. He's
Come
dead.
on, man.
He's dead.
You wouldn't
Stu's
want to
dead.
see him come back?
Nope. Nope.
Why? He's one of
Stu
the
is
best. Come
dead.
on.
Stu's dead, people.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
He's fucking
he's
dead.
probably dead, but
Probably.
it wouldn't be out of the realm of the possibility.
I
It's not
think
like he
it
got
would
shot in the head or anything.
ruin,
I know
ruin,
you feel very strongly about this. I know.
ruin Sydney's character arc just in the first movie, let alone the other movies. And talk about plot hole
Yeah,
central. Why was he not mentioned of surviving? He's dead. He's fucking dead. It would cause so many plot holes if he lived.
they could work it out.
He's dead.
I
He's
trust.
dead.
I trust radio silence.
No, he's dead. So
Yeah,
after Sydney kills Stu, people, Randy comes to, and then I love how Randy's like, because he was just shot in like the shoulder. He's like, I never thought I'd be so happy to be a virgin. But then Billy pops up right away and punches Randy and goes after Sid. And then he gets the upper hand and he's going to stab her and he gets says, say hello to your mother. But then Sydney, she like fingers his like wound from the umbrella, and then Gail ends up shooting him. And I love how she says, guess I remember the safety of that time, you bastard. Oh, fucking love that line. And then Randy comes up, and they're all Gail, Sydney, and Randy are like above the body, above Billy's body. And Randy goes, "Careful! This is the moment when the supposedly dead killer comes back to life for one last scare." And then that's exactly what happens. Billy goes as he pops back up, and then Sydney shoots him in the head. And then she goes, "Not in my movie." I'm like, oh fuck, I love her so much. The way she just takes him down and says, "Not in my movie." And
yeah.
then we do get one more pop out scare. It's Sydney's dad. He pops out of the closet. The poor guy has been locked up in there.
I
Well,
know. He's been
Sydney
there.
hid him in there, obviously, when she escaped. But
Yeah,
she like kind of forgot about him in that moment. But they all help him and untie him. And then I love how we get this scene of the ambulance there, and we see Dewey. He's rolled out in a stretcher, but he gives a little thumbs up just so the audience know that he survived. And actually, Wes
yeah,
Craven told David Arquette to do that because just in case they wanted, because he was supposed to die in the original cut of the movie, but everyone loved working with him so much, and everyone wanted him to survive that Wes Craven's like, do a thumbs up, so we know that you're gonna make it to the sequel. So
mm,
Dewey lives, and then the movie closes as Gail Weathers. She's doing her live report as an eyewitness of the breaking story. And I love how it ends with like several teens. She's saying, several teens are dead, bringing to an end the harrowing mystery of the mass killings that has terrified this quiet community, just like the plot of some scary movie. Love how we end on her giving that report. And then cut to black, we get a little ghost face flash, scream. And Wes Craven and Kevin Williamson, man, bravo, bravo. And I love, and the Scream movies have my favorite credits of all time too. They have iconic credits. And this song is "Whispered to a Scream" by Soho. And I love how we get the actual pictures of the actors. I love how they do that in the credits. Iconic, all the movies.
oh
But yeah,
yeah. I always like that too. Yeah.
that's Scream. That's Scream, guys.
Okay, so that is Scream 1996. Everybody, there was so much to cover in that movie. Because every single scene is so important. This movie is almost 2 hours long, but it's paced so brilliantly. There's really no wasted scenes at all. So um, I know it kind of felt like we went scene by scene by scene, but I think it was important to do that. But now that we've covered the entire plot, the entire movie, we've gone through it all. Is there anything, Ant, that you want to highlight and go back and talk about a little bit? I know this episode's long already, but we kind of expected that. I mean, this is a huge movie and it means a lot to you. So I'll kind of defer to you and ask you what topic you want to discuss at all, or if you want to just get right into the scores.
Okay, yeah. I mean, we went through the whole movie, but I still feel like I'm forgetting stuff because I just have so much to talk about with this movie. So I'm sure we'll be covering it again in the future. But just to take it back to the overall vibe of the movie, how did you feel about, because this is one of the first this is Scream introduced the self-aware meta culture of
Mm,
everything.
yeah,
How do you think it was introduced it to the franchise? Because now, like, when we look back, it's like, of course Scream the franchise self-aware, but when you go back to the first movie, it was really something different. And we brought up like
Yeah.
I brought up so many movies going over the plot. So how did you feel that this movie incorporated the horror genre overall?
Okay. I'm glad you brought this up because I believe this franchise suffers from in the sequels because it has to do everything more and bigger than the original, but I thought the original did it just enough for me. It was actually like the perfect amount. Is that what you're asking? Like if they went too meta or not, or how they
No, I
handled
just
it? I thought
like
they
do,
handled it pretty well in the original, and I think the sequels always try to like go more and more with it, and it kind of loses me a little bit. But for the original, like just going based off the original, yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think they do it very tastefully. I mean, it gets a little bit like with the whole psycho quotes and stuff. Like by
I
the end of
love
the
that.
movie,
I
maybe it's
love it.
like a
It's
little bit
perfect.
too much for some
No.
people, but for me, no, it works for me because it's delivered so excellently. Like you believe that the characters are like they're not just reading lines, you know what I mean? Like the actors make you believe that the characters actually know these movies. So it works. It works personally
I
for me, but I guess I could
I
see
just
why
think
some people
it's so special because we're watching a horror movie where the characters in the movie are aware that horror movies exist. And it's just so clever because they're actually like familiar with these movies and they're like you said they're quoting them. They know the cliches and the tropes and we don't get that in other horror movies. So I just love that we're watching a movie where the characters are aware of horror movies and the horror genre in general. It just makes it so genius. Not even just Randy, like everyone in the movie.
uh-huh. Yeah.
And I
And
mean,
it
and I think to your point, I mean, no, we're talking about the original, but I think the sequels are just commenting on different things within the genre. Like Scream 2's sequels, obviously, Scream 3's trilogy, Scream 4 is the remake, and Scream 5 is the legacy sequel. So it's just different than the original. So that's what I would say to my point to that. It's just a different kind of commentary than the original. So they have to kind of switch it up a bit.
yeah, it is different. When I say more, I guess my feeling is the sequels kind of bring that more to the forefront than the original. Like the original would be a badass solid movie without those meta things, but with the meta things, it makes it like fucking amazing. I mean, it's one of your
Right.
favorites of all time. So,
Yeah.
and credit to the screenplay and Wes Craven
Kevin Williamson. Yep.
Kevin Williamson, right? Because
He
it's
wrote I
that
Know What You
much
Did Last Summer. He like really
yeah.
after Scream, he like kicked off like,
When you have
you know,
characters that are this meta and are like aware of other horror movies, it makes it that much harder to write for them because every decision that they make, like when Nev is being chased by the killer, when Sydney's being chased by Ghostface, like you're now critiquing her extra hard because you know these characters know the tropes and know what not to do. Especially a
right,
guy like Randy, when Randy's sitting on the couch, like he's literally like you said, he's literally commenting Jamie, Jamie, turn
right,
around.
right.
Like, but
Talking
they
to
play
himself
with that
almost,
so
yeah. Right,
brilliantly. So they get away with it. There's no moments where I feel like the characters are being like super dumb. Where I'm sitting there saying like they should know better because horror movies exist in this universe.
right.
Verse, it's brilliant, and
But
it's
I
going to be
also
hard to
love
pick.
like I love to flip it. Like I love what you just said is 100% true, but to flip it, I love how like Wes and Kevin Williamson what they also did is that I mean some of the decisions that some of the characters make in certain scenes aren't the smartest, but I love how they show that even with all that knowledge, when you're in
Hmm.
that moment and your adrenaline's going like 110% and you don't know what to do, you're being chased
Yeah,
by a killer. That doesn't happen every day in your life. That
yeah.
sometimes you're going to make a dumb decision that people do in the 80s horror movies. So I love the
Wow,
flip.
yeah,
They do it both ways.
yeah.
So I
That's a
just love
great
how
point.
because I mean Nev
Yeah.
does run up the stairs. I mean, she tries to go to the front door first,
Hmm.
but she goes up the stairs anyway. Randy is not looking behind him. You know, Tatum
Yeah,
goes through the garage door. You know, Casey, she doesn't run when she sees the car. She goes around the house. You know, so they're
yeah.
still doing things that the horror genre does while playing with it and being smart. So it's just so like
You know, that's a
I,
great.
it's
That's
so
great that you
perfect.
brought that
It's
up.
so
I've never thought
perfect.
about
Yeah.
it. They're almost like commenting to us, saying
Right.
like, just because you think you know better, it doesn't mean you're gonna do better in that situation.
Exactly. And it's so genius because
That's
they're
so
talking like
fucking great. Yeah.
the characters in the movie are self-aware, but we're self-aware too. So
Mhm.
Wes and Kevin Williamson, they're talking to the characters and us at the same time. It's just like a mind fuck. It's just
Yeah.
so it's genius, man. This
Yeah.
movie's like I mean it's
Yeah.
genius.
Yeah.
It's this franchise
It's
is special for a reason. It's clever.
mhm. Yeah. And everything is done so well, and it's put together beautifully. Like nothing is overdone in this movie.
The
Like, and
editing
the
is, like,
things that are
perfect.
overdone are done intentionally, and like,
Right.
you know what I mean? Like, I can't say that for every single sequel. Like all the sequels I do enjoy. There isn't like a terrible movie in this franchise, but there are some decisions in the sequels where it's like, okay, that's kind of played out a little bit, or that's that and that's that. Especially Scream 2, for great of a movie it is, they kind of use the same recipe, which is great because Scream 1 is so good, but like
Don't
Scream
be fucking
1
with my Scream 2, man. Don't be
yeah,
fucking with my Scream 2 right now.
we'll
We'll
get
get
into
to the
our
sequels, but I
we'll
don't
get into
agree
our
with
rankings.
I love the sequels.
Yeah. Well, you have to admit that that's a common critique of Scream 2 is they kind of play it too close to the book with Scream, the original Scream.
I don't think so. I don't
Oh,
think they
really?
do
I've
at
heard that
all.
before, and
I don't think they do at
I'm not
all.
going to play my cards, and we'll get into our rankings soon enough of the franchise. But back to my point, it's done so brilliantly in the original, where there's really, like I said, there's no wasted scenes, nothing is played out. There's a lot of meta commentary, but it all just flows right into the script so brilliantly. It's not forced. You know what I mean? Like it's so
Nothing is forced in this movie at
yeah,
all.
it's so
It's
good.
just oh, it's perfect. It's really
You're
it's
making me
amazing.
regret leaving Ghostface off my top 10 now.
As you should.
Yeah.
But I want to bring up just because you talked about like how it's cohesive and perfectly like stitched together. I want to bring up the editor Patrick Lussier. He
Hmm.
was the editor on the
Oh
first three
shit.
movies, I believe, or at least the first two.
Jason down.
Um,
Jason's down. He doesn't approve. He doesn't like Ghostface. I'll
sorry,
fix that
Jason.
later.
Ghostface is a
Yeah.
little better.
Yeah.
But yeah, Patrick Lussier, he's the editor. He actually ended up directing Drive Angry and I think the My Bloody Valentine remake. He had a hand in that. But he's just a great team with Wes Craven and how they stitched this movie together. It's so
Mhm.
good.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, definitely.
And then the finale, like when we were talking about it, it's so long, but again, it's just so perfectly paced. So, what are your overall thoughts of them watching Halloween?
Mm.
Sydney getting chased through the house, the Tatum scene. I mean, the reveal of Billions 2. Like, it's just so much to go over, and I just love how it's all taking place at this one location, but so much happens. So, how do you feel? I mean, the kitchen is iconic alone, that scene.
Yeah.
The whole. So, I mean, I just love, 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 love how they used Halloween in this movie.
It's funny because yeah, no, me too. If you would have like if I'm trying to pretend like if I've never seen this movie and you were describing
It's
this
so
movie to
hard, yeah.
me, like scene by scene, and you were telling me this third act, I would say like, wait a minute, like the third act like has okay, quick chase scene, he kills like the TV camera guy, and then he killed like, and then the big reveal takes like a half hour. Like that sounds way out of whack. Like I would probably want more killings, more chasing, but seeing it executed, I don't have any complaints about it. Does that make sense? Like I'm thinking if it was another movie or if it wasn't executed as great as it was, like maybe I would have liked Ghostface to kind of go more ham at the party and like kill more party goers just because I like cool
Right.
kills, or maybe
You,
like an extended. I mentioned the barn across the street, maybe like an
right.
extended chase sequence, but like no, like it's so perfect the way it is, and that extended like scene in the kitchen is like
And you want to know
so
why? It's
brilliantly
because the
done.
characters in this movie are unlike any other character in any
Yeah,
other slasher.
yeah,
That's why it works. That's because
and
in
because
Friday the 13th, the ending is all like kills, 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 and the
yeah,
chase scene with the final girl. This
uh huh.
movie, it's about
It
Sidney Prescott and the
blends it
characters. Yeah,
perfectly, yeah,
it's
and
just
it's the who done it too of it all, and
exactly
I mentioned this in our I think I mentioned this in our top 10 villain episode that the Ghostface reveal part of these movies means a lot to me. So I think that's another reason why this ending works, because the reveal, I mean, this is the most iconic reveal in the franchise. Obviously, it's the one that kickstarted it all, but Matthew Lillard just fucking nails like all of his scenes. He's
So
so
does Skeet Ulrich. Yeah,
yeah,
he's great
it's a
in that
good
reveal.
balance. It's a good balance.
Right.
Yeah, I like it a lot. He's super creepy too when he does the when he shoots Randy, like that scene
Yeah.
still gets me. I'm like, oh, I can't I picture myself being Sydney in that moment, like
And they
the
play off so
absolute
well of
mind
each
fuck.
other. Skeet and
Hmm.
Matt. They're so good together.
Yeah. Yeah,
I know some
it's
of
so
like
good.
there's some like some people think there's like a hidden meaning of them and they're like actually like in a relationship and all that. But I mean There's
Yeah, I've
subtext
heard that,
there.
like
There's subtext there.
yeah,
But to me, I just take it like I take it as it is like the first time I saw it. I think that Billy's the mastermind, obviously, and Stu's
uh-huh.
his sidekick. Stu's just a little fucker. He's a
Yeah,
sidekick.
I've heard that
I
too.
never, I don't get. I mean, I mean, I think if anything, Stu would be in love with Billy,
Mhm.
obviously, because he's like he
Yes.
looks up to him. But and Billy could have been using him.
I maybe thought that
but
too, that
but
Stu
I
was
don't.
in love with Billy, but
Right,
Stu acts
he
that
could
way
be.
in general, like to all the
Right. And
characters.
that's a valid if people have that like opinion that's valid, just for me, I never saw it like as in like they're lovers. I never saw it like
No.
that.
Yeah.
So but I
They
have
could
heard
be.
that yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean they could there's a valid argument if someone were to make it, but for me I don't take it as that.
I
So
mean,
it's just
Billy was
interesting, yeah.
definitely fucking around, so
Well we
he was
especially
definitely
because we
cheating
find
on
out in
Sydney,
Scream
so
5 that
it's
yeah,
possible he could have had a little romance with
more than a
Stu.
bromance.
Yeah. I feel like I kind of thought that too, but over time, I think I
And
don't.
honestly, I never even
Especially,
thought about it until like the internet age and like when I
yeah.
saw like the subreddits on it. I'm like, oh, I
Mhm.
never like put two and two together, but like reading it, it makes sense. But me personally, I always
Yeah.
saw it as just like they're friends, they're fucked up friends. But and Billy, like, his mom was taken away from him because he's blaming Sydney because her mom, and I think that Stu was just along for the ride. I
Yes.
know I don't
Yeah.
think, and because Stu's like fucking crazy, we know he's crazy too. They're both crazy, but
It
I
would make
never
sense
got
though if,
no,
like,
it makes
Billy
sense. I
took
just
advantage of
never
Stu.
well, that's
Uh,
what everyone says. He did take
yeah.
even if they weren't in a relationship, he still took advantage of Stu. You know
Yeah,
what
it
I
would
mean?
make sense,
Regardless, he
like,
did. Yeah. So yeah, I just was curious about your thoughts on that too. But yeah, this is just
I don't
an
really
all
have, like, a
timer.
strong
Okay.
yeah, like, in terms of their relationship, I just think, uh, either way, it's he took advantage of Stu, and Stu definitely looks up to Billy as, like, a, you know, I don't know, not a role model, but he definitely because Billy's, like, the cool kid, and Stu
Right.
is a little, out there, he's a little dorky, but, I think, I don't know, I don't think it really matters.
No,
Like,
I mean, I think
it's
any opinion's valid, but I just to me, I
yeah.
never.
If
Yeah,
people
very
want to
interesting.
believe that, I don't think it really affects how they interpret the movie, because either way,
Right.
he's, like, infatuated with Billy, either just a friendship or
Right. Exactly.
romantic. Yeah, yeah.
He's
I
infatuated
guess
with this whole plot that Billy created, and now he wants in with
mhm,
his whole plan.
mhm, yeah. How did it work for you? I mean, you didn't really talk about, too much,
Um,
like, the whole 3rd act. I mean, I know you said you
it's
love the
beautiful. It's
Halloween
perfect.
scene and stuff, and
It's perfect. It's a master. It was just nothing, not one thing I would change about
Okay.
this.
Yeah,
Once they arrive at that, there's nothing I would change about this movie.
yeah.
It's just perfect,
Uh-huh.
perfect, perfect. The Tatum death scene is one of the all-time greats. It's iconic and classic. I mean, you think whenever you see a garage door and you associate that with the horror movie, you're gonna think of her. I mean, when Sydney, I mean, the Sydney of it all in the finale, she really we start to see those hints of the person who she is today in Scream 5 because she
Mm,
does you see that fight in the finale, but she still has all that she's still a kid, she's still a teenager, she still has all that
yeah,
fear and trauma, and she's just found out that her boyfriend killed her mom. It's a year later on the anniversary, her dad's missing, she's going through a lot, but she fights back, and I that's why she is the ultimate final girl, and I just love how from Scream to Scream 2 in the finale she gets more badass. From Scream 3 she's like finally like, I've heard this shit before, let's get on with it. And then Scream 4 she's like, don't fuck with the original, I'm the original. And then Scream 5 she's like, what, I'm bored, let's get this shit over with. It's just she's fucking badass. And I just love the hints
yeah.
of that in this finale. It's so good.
I love how you
I mean, yeah.
go ahead, so
No,
to
you
finish your
go.
thought.
No,
No,
I finished it, yeah.
I was just gonna switch gears. We haven't really talked much about Gale.
I
And
was saying I was
okay.
gonna go through each member.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to touch on Gale real quick. I mean, I love what they did with her. She kind of is a badass in her own regard, but she's still we know from Scream 2 what she ends up doing, but so she's still kind of like a piece of shit, but not really. Like like
She's
we
still
talked about
putting
it
her career
before,
first, like
her
above ethics.
evolution
Yeah, right,
is kind of not
right,
completely straight.
right,
There's
right.
bumps along the way. I mean,
She
she has
doesn't
the
think with
moment with
ethics
Dewey.
in the first one with her
Yeah,
in regards to her career, and the second one she learns like she's learning her lesson in the second one
yeah,
to get to that point to have like more humanity,
hmm
and then after that, I just love she has the most. I will give it to her. She has the most evolution throughout the entire franchise of the trio,
Mm. But she
and
even
Courtney
in this
Cox is
original,
perfect.
I
Right.
mean, she comes
Oh,
back
yeah,
into
just
the
by the
house
end,
with
yeah.
the gun, and she does, play hero, even
Right,
though the gun wasn't, the safety
right.
was
Well, then
on,
she ends
but
up
then she
but
comes
she
up,
does save
comes
her
back.
later,
Yeah,
but
but she
she's
could have just bounced
right, right,
initially, but she
right,
put herself in the line of fire, so to
right.
speak, and, so, like, that's a little glimpse of future Gale
They're
from what
both
they
and
were,
she's a
you
final
know.
girl too. She doesn't get enough credit. I know Sydney
Mhm.
is the final girl, but Gail's right there too. She's the
Uh,
another final girl of the franchise.
yeah, Gale gets overlooked because Sydney's always the target usually.
Right, right.
It revolves around
That's why
Sydney.
I mean we'll
So
talk about Scream 6, soon, but I'm excited for Gail to hopefully get the
that
spotlight a little
almost,
bit
now
in
that I'm thinking
6.
about it, that almost makes Gale, whether or not her intentions are completely holy and honorable, that almost makes her like more of a, how do I put this? Like Sydney's being targeted in all these movies, so she kind of has to endure. But
Gail gets
Gale
herself
puts
involved.
herself,
Right,
yeah,
right.
she gets
So she's a
involved
badass, yeah.
to save others and the people she
Right.
cares about. Dewey
And
and
then I
Sydney's
love
character.
how throughout the movies well, obviously she cares about Dewey quickly, like at Scream 2, like once we get to Scream 2, but she does
Yeah.
end up really caring for Sydney, so she wants to
Hmm.
protect her as well, like
Oh
by
yeah.
the time we get to Scream 3.
Yeah.
Um
Definitely.
yeah, I love and then Dewey, I mean, I mean, he's just lovable Dewey. I just love him so much. And again, I mean, look at him from Scream 1 to Scream 5, his character too, like how he ends up in Scream 5. When we start
Hmm.
that movie, he's a completely different character from Scream. Not completely different, he still has his Dewey quirks, but they're just their relationship and the love they have for each other, the trio, it's what makes this franchise Scream to
It's the
me.
heartbeat. Yeah, it's definitely the
Yeah.
heartbeat of this franchise for sure.
And he always
Awesome.
just wants to protect Dewey and Gale and Sydney. That's all he wants to do. He's such a good dude.
Yeah,
He's such a
and the
good dude.
town. He
I
really
love
cares
him.
about
Yeah.
Woodsboro. I mean, you
He
see
cares
in
about being the
Scream,
I mean, right, he
in
cares
Scream
about being the
5,
sheriff in the
you
4, and
find
then
out
he's
that
so
he
upset
tried to
about
leave
that in 5.
Woodsboro.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
that he couldn't bring himself to be away from Woodsboro for
Right.
what is it, like 2 months, he said he was in New York?
Yeah, which I
Tried
mean,
to,
and to Gale's
he
credit, like
literally
he didn't give it a
broke
shot
it
long
off with
enough.
the
Right.
love of his life. I
Right.
mean, to come back to the community that he
He couldn't
loves. I
handle
mean,
the
that's
big
just,
city. He loves his small
yeah,
town. And
yeah. Is there anything
so
else?
good.
I know this is kinda
We
lengthy
can
already,
keep
but
going on so we
I
can
know.
if you want we're going to come back to this movie when we cover the other movies and other episodes, but I think
Yeah.
we got a good first episode of commenting on the plot of the movie so we can move into your never split up and then we'll get
Okay.
into the scores, which
Awesome.
you better be up there in the score. Once this
Six
podcast is over.
point. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Let's get into our never split up scores. I
So
won
you
last
won.
week,
Yeah.
so I get to go first. This was a tough one. This was a pretty tough one because, as I commented before, not a lot of super dumb moments because everything is meta. I mean, the characters know like
They're aware.
most of the tropes. So, um, and Ghostface knows too. We forget about that. Like Billy and Stu are aware of those tropes too. So
Well,
Ghostface
even
plays on
from the
that
opening
too.
scene is like, you should never answer the
Yeah,
front door. Don't say who's there. Like that's a
yeah.
death wish. Like, you know
He's
what I mean?
helping Casey.
They're
Yeah, yeah,
they know their horror trivia. That's the game. That's
yeah.
the game they're playing with all these
Exactly.
characters. It's funny.
But I'm gonna go with it's not gonna be Cindy. I can't go for my girl Sydney, and you'll be
Yeah,
happy to hear that.
good.
I'm gonna go with my boy Randy. He is the
Randy,
most knowledgeable guy in the franchise. He is the super horror nerd, and I'm gonna go with Randy at the party when he gets the phone call that the
Principal Henry.
principal,
Yeah,
Principal Henry. I was gonna say Henry Winkler's character, but that's literally his
I
name. But
love how
Principal
I
Henry,
love it.
yeah,
Yeah. So meta.
dies. He
Yeah.
announces it to the party, and the rest. This is when the rest of the party leaves the house. They all say, "All right, let's
Right.
go." I'm gonna go with Randy for not going with the crowd and staying alone in the house
Okay.
watching Halloween. I know he like loves Halloween, so he wants to
Can you
finish the
blame a
movie,
dude
but
to not
like
want to finish Halloween
I
first?
can because he realizes that he's in the middle of a freaking horror movie and he knows one of the killers is probably they've already established in the movie that it's probably someone from the friend group. Like Randy suspects Billy and all that stuff. So like yeah, like Randy, dude, why are you hanging around Stu's house? You know Stu's best friends with Billy. He knows because Billy had arrived already, right? He was upstairs with
Yeah,
Sydney.
yeah, yeah.
So, stay with the
And Randy
crowd, man.
knows he's there. Yeah, Randy
I
knows
would
he's
have
there.
left with the crowd. I would have went,
Okay.
I would have went, out. I would have gone. I would have been gone. Yeah, I wouldn't have stayed. I think that's, I can't really, you can't really defend Randy because he's so knowledgeable. So it's like every little mistake he makes, it's like, dude, Randy,
Get a
what the
few
fuck?
beers in you, and
I know. Yeah,
don't drink or do drugs. He
yeah,
broke the cardinal rule.
yeah, yeah. I was gonna go a little bit more specific with the scene where it's like super meta, where he says "turn around," but like that's
I know I was
such a
gonna
great
say if
scene.
he left, we wouldn't get that scene.
I know. But I'm gonna go with the fact that he didn't leave with the rest
So
of the
the horror
party.
nerd didn't listen to his own rules and leave. So that's what you're
He
pretty much
split
going
up.
with,
He literally split up
right?
by not staying with the herd. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So Randy. Okay.
Yep.
I am going to
Love
go
you,
for a
Randy.
moment. I love Randy.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go for a moment that has me like yelling at the screen every time to just like do this, do that, run, run, go. It's the opening scene when Casey Becker sees her parents, even if she doesn't know it's her parents, she sees a car driving towards the house and she's outside already and Ghostface is still lurking in the house looking for her. When she looks up, I would be sprinting through that field. I would look up and sprint through that field
Yeah.
to go to the road to the car. I wouldn't
Uh-huh.
go around the house
Yeah.
when Ghostface is right there. That's when he pops up, and that leads to her death. So every time I watch a scene, I'm like, "Girl, just run. You can make it." And I know
Mm.
Wes is doing that on purpose because he wants us to do that, yell at her to do that. But I'm
Yeah.
just like, oh, if she just ran, she had like an 80% more chance of living. Even if he like saw her running halfway in the field, she still could have. I mean, had a head start.
Yeah.
So I just get so upset every time when she looks and sees the car, and like Hope is right in front of her, but she doesn't go and sprint through the field towards the car.
Yeah.
It gets me every time. I'm like, girl, I'm rooting for you right now. But she goes
Yeah.
around the house and then Ghostface pops up, chases her and stabs her. So yeah, it's Casey does not
Okay.
run through the field to get to her parents' car before they arrive at the house. Because she's putting her parents in harm's way too by letting them come close to the house instead of just running towards them.
Okay, I have a question for you because this was almost I thought about this moment, but I was very confused on this scene and I didn't bring it up when we talked about it initially. So Casey, it seems like so she can see the car coming up the road because she's outside. But then as the scene plays on, it seems like she's in the backyard. Am I wrong
Well,
on
she
that?
she
Because she
runs
runs around the house to the front yard,
So she
right?
runs around the house through the no, she run after she sees the car, she runs through the backyard because that's when she sees Steve by the pool in the
Yeah, yeah,
backyard.
yeah. Okay.
So she sees the car first and then she runs around. I don't know if she thinks she's gonna
So,
run
like, how
around and
did
catch her.
she I'm trying to orient myself with the house and the
So what I
road.
think, I'm just putting
I'm
myself in her
confused how
headspace
she
is
saw the car if she's in the backyard, because it looks like she
she's not
looks, like,
I
kinda
don't think she's
straight
in the
ahead.
backyard yet. She's on the side of
Oh,
the house at that scene because there's like a side door. I mean, the house is fucking
okay.
huge. I
Yeah,
think she's on like the side, and that's when she sees it. But then she runs around the back because I think if I'm putting myself in her headspace, I think she's trying to run around the house to catch her parents when they pull up to the front. That's what her plan was
okay.
for when they arrive. Like that's what she was trying to
So
do,
the
but
road
Ghostface
you
caught
think,
her.
like, the road kinda wraps around the side of the house?
Yeah,
Like,
so I
because 'cause
think
I'm
the
wondering
road she
how she
saw
was
the
able to
road
see the
from the
car,
side of the house. I think she saw the road from the side of the house,
but she couldn't
and
just
then
run straight for the car. Was there a fence there or something? Because she was in a corner.
no, no,
She was in
she
the
could have
corner of the
ran. That's
house,
what I'm
and
saying.
she
She
had her
didn't
back
run.
against the wall of something. It
To
was
the
the house
house.
and
She had
something.
her. She had the. It's like
Wasn't
the
there,
house,
like,
and
a
there was a window
corner?
next to her. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But she could see
Okay.
the car. But like I said, I think she was waiting for them to come closer to
Yeah.
run to. So that's why she ran around the
Okay.
back to get to the front to get to
Yeah,
the car
okay.
when they pulled up. But when she was doing that, by the time she did that, Ghostface found her. But I get so upset. I'm just like, girl, run. Even if she didn't see a car, fucking run through the field. Just
Well,
run out
I
in
even
the open.
commented on
Yeah,
this earlier.
yeah.
She just, like, stands up in the window,
And
and,
I
like,
and I
it's
get
like,
it.
"Dude,
I'm
what the
not in
fuck?"
that situation. Like
Yeah.
she's in shock. I mean, all this shit's happening to her, but like,
Mhm.
oh, if she just ran.
Yeah, I mean, this
Run,
is a
bitch,
classic.
run.
This is, like this is again, this is so brilliant because we don't have any of the meta coming from Casey. We have it all from Ghostface, and this is the opening scene
Right.
of the movie. So this is our like traditional moment where we're yelling at the screen.
Yeah.
And then after this, we get all like the meta stuff with the other characters. So it's not really
Right.
traditional anymore, but they threw this in as the opening. And yeah, I mean, so you went with super traditional, like
Yeah,
Casey, like,
because
dude, you could have made better
I was
decisions.
gonna go
Yeah.
with, maybe, Tatum, but, like, she put up such a badass fight, it's like, whatever, she can try to go through the door,
Yeah, and
whatever.
she tried to open the door originally and it got
Yeah,
stopped by
she
Ghostface,
really did
so
a lot to she fought for
yeah.
her survival, it just didn't work out, so I'm like,
Yeah, poor
Casey, and
Tatum.
Casey did too, but, like, if she ran, she would've survived, that's what bothers me.
Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, that's my never split up moment.
Okay, cool. We got more of a traditional moment from you and then me, like, being super meta with the most meta guy in the movie.
Yep,
He should have been a lot smarter. So, 2 good moments, I think.
awesome.
Okay, let's get into the scores.
I'm nervous
um,
for you.
again, I wanna let you go first. You have to go first
Okay,
for this.
okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, well, I mean, it's like a record on repeat, but this is my favorite franchise of all time, and Scream is my second favorite movie of all time. It's just a classic meta whodunit slasher, a 90s movie. Like all these things are my sweet spots. We have Wes Craven, Kevin Williamson. I mean, I'm introduced to my favorite final girl of all time, Sydney Prescott, played by Nev
Mhm,
Campbell. I mean, Gail and Dewey. These three are my favorite characters in film history, and this is my introduction to them.
mhm,
I mean, the opening scene is my favorite. Like I said, that's my favorite opening scene of all time, not just in horror. Um, they're playing Halloween. This movie is a love letter to Halloween, which is my favorite movie of all time.
mhm,
I mean, it talks about horror movies within the movie. The final act is just epic and so iconic and unforgettable. It's just a movie that everything it's doing is catering to everything I love about movies. So this is a
mhm.
perfect movie. This
Uh-oh.
movie is
You're
a
throwing
10
out the
out of 10 for
perfect.
me. This movie is a 10 out of
Oh!
10.
It's a
Yeah,
10. Wow.
it's a 10.
Wow.
It's a 10,
But
10 out of 10.
okay. Okay.
It's my
Okay.
second favorite movie of all time.
I was just gonna say it's not your favorite movie of all time, so how is it a 10? But I guess it's gonna be tied with your favorite movie of all time.
Well,
Yeah.
because you know how because I mean, I just said because Scream is
Can't
my
go more
favorite
than 10.
franchise of all time.
Yeah.
Halloween's my favorite movie of all time, but the
Okay.
Halloween franchise is my second favorite franchise of all time. They're flip flop.
Mhm. Yeah. I
It's a 10.
can't I mean, I knew it would be close to a 10. I wasn't sure if you were gonna go for that 10 or not, so
It's
that
a
was like
fucking
this.
10.
Okay. Alright. Awesome. I guess it's my turn. I mostly agree with everything you say. It doesn't really, I guess, affect me and hit me the same way it does for you.
So another
I don't.
slasher movie hits you more than this, like with everything it's doing. Like you have other
Yeah, that was gonna be
really.
my next point. Like, this isn't my go-to like slasher movie when I want to watch a slasher movie. Um, I don't know why. It's definitely an all-timer for me, but for some reason I this isn't I wouldn't even say this is like top 3 in terms of like slashers or horror movies that I've watched the most amount of times, if that makes sense. Like I've watched Scream a
No, it
lot, but
doesn't make
I
sense.
I know. Well, I'm trying to explain myself here, but I've watched other movies more than Scream, so I can't give this a 10 out of 10. It's not a knock on Scream.
All right.
It's just it's not this is such a good perfect movie though. I mean, it's tough. I'm going to give this a whew. Don't give me that look.
Got it.
Oh man, I'm gonna give this oh man, a oh, this is so tough. I'm like still undecided on this score. Um and it's not for any other reason. I don't want to regret it. It has nothing to do with like your reaction or anything or peer pressure, even though you're staring daggers at me. Sorry, not to prolong this too much, but I'm gonna give this a fuck nine a 9.5 9.5.
Okay, I'll
Okay,
take it.
yeah,
I'll
yeah,
take that.
9.5.
I
I
want to just ask you a
believe
question though, quick
I believe
before
that's
we
the
finish
same
up.
score as Sinister. I don't
Yeah,
remember.
which that's crazy.
Um, I told you how much I love Sinister, man.
I have a question though, because you said that like Scream is not one of your go tos when you go for a slasher.
Like the
What
original,
about
yeah, yeah.
as a franchise as a whole,
Okay.
is it one of your
Um,
go-tos? Because it's the most consistent slasher franchise
yeah.
ever made.
I don't do. I feel like I don't. Um, I
Or
feel like
even when you
you
look
do
at it as a
more
whole,
than.
when you look at it as a whole, like compared to whatever your
Are you
favorite
asking
franchise
me
is.
like where it ranks as a franchise,
No, like as in
or
like
is
your
it like a?
rewatchability factor, like franchise as a
Okay.
whole. Like compare, like do you watch this more than Friday the 13th franchise or Halloween? Like because this is argue
Uh,
like
yeah.
in many opinion, it's quality wise the best
Yeah.
slasher
No, I know.
franchise.
I know. I've heard that from mostly you, but from other people too.
No, it's a major.
I
It's
agree with
it's the
you.
most
This
consistent.
I
It's literally
can't.
the. It's actually the most consistent franchise continuity wise. 100%.
Yeah, I mean, there's more lows for me in this than there is for you for sure.
Okay.
I'm
I
not gonna
was
say
just
there's a bad
curious.
movie.
I was
Yeah,
just
no,
curious.
I'm trying to.
Like how much you go back to the
It's
franchise.
funny
That's all.
because um I appreciate this franchise more. I would say in the last like three or 4 years, I've actually been this franchise
Okay.
has really been growing on me because I think I that's when I had my realization that wait a minute, this franchise is really solid. And
When's the first time you watched Scream? Sorry, did we go over this? When did you? Do you
uh
remember when you first saw Scream? Like how old you were?
I was I was definitely a kid. I don't remember.
Okay.
I really
Okay.
don't. I've seen I it's one of those
I know
movies
it's hard. It's hard.
it wasn't it wasn't like, I told you Halloween, The Shining I watched when I was super young, so I have those memories. It wasn't that, but it was
Okay.
if I had to guess, maybe like middle school
Oh,
or
okay.
something. Yeah, so
Okay.
like
So you were
decently
not
young.
like. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
But I
Okay.
didn't grow up with it, I
Okay.
guess.
Okay.
Um but to answer your question quickly,
Yeah. I'm
it
just curious.
I it's becoming more important to me
Okay.
as time goes on. If, is that a fair question?
Yeah.
I,
Yeah. That's a
oh
fair
yeah, what I
response.
was
I'm
gonna say
just.
before was I feel like you do like binges of franchises more frequently than I do. Like you'll sit down one weekend and say, "Oh, I'm gonna watch all the Screams." I don't really do that as much.
Okay.
I did that with Scream before Scream 5. Me and Jackie sat down and watched them all, but I can't remember the last time I did that where I watched all four Scream films like back
It's
to
so
back.
funny that you
So I
say
feel
that.
like you do that a lot more than I do. So it's
I
really hard for
literally
me
was
to even like Friday movies or Halloween movies, I'll get like a urge to watch a random one. I don't watch them
right
like in
within the
order.
franchise.
Yeah.
So like to me, it's like I wait to watch how like I can watch Halloween whenever. Obviously, I look it's amazing, but I try to wait obviously until October to watch it. And like Friday the 13th, like if it's a Friday the 13th coming up, I'll try
Yeah,
to
you'll
watch
throw them,
as
yeah.
many of them as I can. But
Which
there's
is
a lot in that
impossible, yeah.
franchise.
Yeah.
But for Scream, it's so funny. I was just gonna say like I was trying to wait until like the first week of March to do another binge.
Yeah.
And like
You couldn't help
this
yourself.
franchise is so like I just watched the whole. I just did a binge last week, and
Did you
I
really?
rewatch this franchise like every other month. That's how much I love it.
Yeah.
It never gets old. It's perfect.
Okay. You do that in general, I feel like more than me. So it's really hard for me
But
to answer that
specifically with this
question.
franchise is the one
Yeah.
I like rewatch the most.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's
I was
not
just
number 1
curious,
for me.
yeah.
I'll tell you that it's not number
Okay.
1. I would say probably Halloween is in terms of like especially the
Franchises.
new trilogy. I've been watching that. I binged those like a few times already, which is a lot for me because it's well, not counting Ends cuz Ends hasn't been out for that long. But like I'll rewatch the original Halloween, Halloween 2018 and Halloween Kills back to back to back. I've done that probably like 4 or 5 times. Oh, since Kills got released. So that's
Have
a
you
lot for
watched
me.
I mean, I don't want to get into that, but have you watched that trilogy like as a whole yet? Like back to back? Halloween 2018,
No, I
Halloween Kills,
haven't.
Halloween Ends? You
I've
have to.
no, I haven't. Yeah, I'm really excited to do that. I've seen Ends a few times now, but I haven't
Okay.
watched Ends back to back to back, so that'll be cool.
And that's my second favorite franchise, so like I'm not gonna argue anything
Yeah.
with it.
Yeah.
But okay,
Okay.
cool. So
Yeah.
that
There
was
we go.
our first episode on
Our
Scream.
our first 10 out of 10 from Anthony.
Yes.
That's big
So
score,
this will be
whopping
our
score.
highest
9.5 for me.
rated. This will be our highest rated movie so far between the both of
Yeah.
us. The average.
Yeah.
I have to update our letterbox, but it is. I
Mm,
already know. I doing it. My idea.
okay. Great. So yeah, again, guys, vote for your favorite Never Split Up moment. It's going to be available on Spotify, Twitter, Instagram, a little bit later in the week after this episode airs. And follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Never Split Up Pod. Please check out our YouTube. Definitely subscribe to our
Subscribe to it.
YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're trying to get
And share it.
subscribers.
Share it if you share like whatever if you can.
Yeah,
with your
subscribing on
friends.
YouTube
Yeah,
is important too because we can unlock more community features and we can put the poll on YouTube eventually when we get enough subscribers. So we're trying to push that as well. And if you can, watch us on YouTube too. We're trying to build up the numbers on YouTube. You get to see our faces, our reactions to things on YouTube. But if not, and you listen to us in the car or at work or whatever, I mean, listening's fine too. We're still available on Spotify, Apple Music, and everywhere. But definitely trying to get that YouTube pumped up a little bit because that
yeah.
can unlock a lot of different cool features and stuff. So, any
Yeah, if you want
last
to get a if you want to
thoughts?
get a taste for like YouTube, if you want to just check out an episode or two, I recommend the Child's Play one and our top villains one because we kind of like our facial reactions to some of our um
Mm,
uh,
yeah,
choices in the villain one
yeah,
and some of our critiques and opinions on Child's Play are
yeah.
they're good to watch.
Also,
So if
the
you want to just
villain
get a
one.
taste, yeah,
Also, the villain one. If you're not like super familiar with all the villains, I was able to edit in like photos of the villains and stuff,
yeah,
and I put in a graphic of each of our lists at the bottom of the YouTube video, like while you're
yep.
watching. So I feel like that's the best video for YouTube so far. So
Yeah, so if
yeah,
you've been
definitely
listening
watch
to
that.
us on the podcast platforms, starting with Sinister is when we started having the video option. So if you want to try to check them out on YouTube as well, that's when we started up the
Hmm.
videos from Sinister on.
Yeah,
Cool.
great. So
And
with
then
that, yeah,
next
go ahead.
week, want to just say what we're going to cover, do a special episode next
Oh
time, what
yeah,
we're going
you
to
can
do.
announce the special episode. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're going to do a quick little special episode on our predictions and what we want in Scream 6 since that movie is really coming up quick. We're less than a month out. So
I know.
that's going to release the week after our Scream episode and we'll have a little fun with some predictions and what we want to happen.
Cool. Yeah, looking forward to that. That's going to be probably a shorter video, but that'll be a fun one for sure.
Awesome.
Awesome. Great. So with that, that's episode 15 of the Never Split Up podcast. I'm Nolan, and for Anthony, we'll see you guys later. Bye.